Chapter 916. Black Blade wielded an ancient transcendent rank combat weapon, and he had already fused with it to the extent of soul fusion. The destructive power of his Devil Blade dance was extremely terrifying, and any ordinary late-stage Emperor Realm expert would be forced to retreat by him. However, Long Yu was only a mid-stage Emperor Realm expert, yet he was able to withstand the pitch-black blade light with ease. Black Blade waved a long blade in his hand, and a huge black net instantly fell from the sky. It was a 5th Grey Divine Chain, and he wanted to trap Long Yu within it. Unfortunately, Long Yu condensed the fallen Dark Star again, and with his balance control, he was able to see through the weakness of the black net with a single glance. He threw the fallen Dark Star, and it immediately exploded, shattering the black net into pieces. Black Blade unleashed all sorts of attacks, but he couldn't do anything to Long Yu. In the end, Long Yu unleashed the 9 underworld heavenly light, and his entire body was enveloped within it. The 9 underworld heavenly light and the absolute space domain had greatly restricted Black Blade's movements. On top of that, Long Yu had suddenly unleashed his origin energy and the 9 underworld shock, causing Black Blade to freeze on the spot. Dragon Bone Break. As Long Yu could stun his opponent, he could immediately unleash the Dragon Bone Break. Most people wouldn't be able to withstand it, with the exception of monstrous existences like the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor. Naturally, Black Blade was no exception. The Dragon Bone Break sent Black Blade flying. Fortunately, the young man's willpower was relatively strong, and he was only stunned for a breath's time. When he regained his senses, he immediately activated his King's Fate Medallion to protect himself, and finally admitted defeat. The strength of this Black Saber was actually not weak. However, it just so happened that he met Long Yu, causing all of his strength to be restrained. In front of Long Yu, there was simply no possibility for him to display his strength. After Black Blade admitted defeat, there was no longer any suspense as to who would be the champion of the competition. Long Yu's next opponents were Si Kong Hui, Yu Hanxin, and Ji Kaiyang. Besides Yu Hanxin being extremely formidable, the other two didn't pose a threat to Long Yu. As for Yu Hanxin, to be honest, after Long Yu defeated Yi Ziwei and Black Knife, no one doubted that Long Yu could defeat Yu Hanxin. The spectators couldn't feel the power of Long Yu's various techniques, so they only knew that Long Yu was very strong, but they didn't know to what extent. And now, there were some people in the audience who were feeling the most regretful and complicated emotions. The head of the Qin family, Qin Zhongyu. A year ago, Qin Zhongyu felt that Long Yu was only in the Monarch realm at that time. Challenging an Emperor realm expert like him was nothing more than a fantasy. But now, Qin Zhongyu had personally witnessed Long Yu's terrifying battle prowess. Even though a year had passed, Qin Zhongyu was still in the initial Emperor realm. With his current strength, he would definitely lose to Black Blade, Yi Ziwei, and the others. In fact, even 100 of him wouldn't be able to defeat one Black Blade or Yi Ziwei. Black Blade and Yi Ziwei, on the other hand, had lost to Long Yu in the competition of the strongest Emperor realm experts. Such a situation filled Qin Zhongyu with panic. When he thought of the life and death duel between him and Long Yu after the Martial God Conference, his heart couldn't calm down no matter how hard he thought about it. In fact, when he agreed to the life and death duel with Long Yu, he already felt that it was a little inappropriate. But when Long Yu threw out a temptation of 100 million Shinbi, he subconsciously agreed to the life and death duel. Now, it seemed that it wasn't 100 million Shinbi at all. It was a fruit that tempted him to go on stage and accept his death. He could see it, but he couldn't eat it. Qin Zhongyu made up his mind at this moment. After the end of the competition, he would visit his daughter Qin Yashuang and ask her to intercede on his behalf to cancel the life and death duel. Without a doubt, Qin Zhongyu was afraid. He wanted to use his daughter to get rid of the life and death duel. Unfortunately, why would Qin Yashuang help him? In the past, Qin Yashuang had wanted to help the Qin family because the other party was her father. However, Qin Zhongyu had disappointed her again and again. Qin Yashuang had long since given up on Qin Zhongyu. She no longer recognized him as her father. On the other side, in the Gongsun family, Gongsun Rong was watching the battle between Long Yu and Blackblade come to an end. His face had turned the color of pig liver. He knew very well that even though he was a mid-stage emperor, he couldn't compare to the Blackblade or Yi Ziwei in terms of strength. If that was the case, then his life or death battle with Long Yu wouldn't bode well for him. Therefore, how could Gongsun Rong dare to continue the life and death duel with Long Yu? Patriarch, why are you worried about this? An elder of the Gongsun family came forward. He knew what Gongsun Rong was worried about, so he smiled and said, Patriarch, you must have heard that after the martial god meeting, the sixth direct disciple of Lei Emperor, Vientian, will have a life and death duel with Long Yu. At that time, Long Yu will definitely die. Patriarch, you only need to pretend to be injured and cancel the battle with Long Yu. Then, when Long Yu and Guyuntian meet, wouldn't that be perfect? Yes. Gongsun Rong heard this and immediately became happy. That's it. I'll just say that I'm injured. Can't that Long Yu force me to have a life and death duel? That's right. The elder smiled and nodded. He secretly looked at Gongsun Rong as if he was looking an idiot. The patriarch of the Gongsun family was scared to this extent by a mere Long Yu. After this, the patriarch of the Gongsun family would definitely be replaced in the Watermoon Sword sect. As one of the 6 sects in 10 countries, the Watermoon Sword sect had never admitted defeat to anyone other than the alliance of 5 emperors. Previously, Long Yu had personally challenged the Watermoon Sword sect's elder, Ji Haokong, to a life and death duel. Of course, the Watermoon Sword sect regarded it as a great humiliation. But now, no one doubted Long Yu's strength at this point in the Emperor Realm tournament. This kid is qualified to fight me and become the champion of the competition. Ji Haokong was quite looking forward to the life and death duel with Long Yu. Now that Long Yu was about to become the champion of the competition, it wouldn't be shameful for Ji Haokong to defeat Long Yu with this identity. Otherwise, it would be too outrageous for a dignified senior like him to bully a junior. Ji Haokong had come all the way from the Emperor Realm. He had participated in the competition for the strongest Emperor Realm before, so he naturally knew how powerful the Emperor Realm was. Normally, the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm wouldn't lose to an ordinary late-stage Great Emperor. But the problem was that Ji Haokong wasn't an ordinary late-stage Great Emperor. As one of the 18 elders of the Watermoon Sword sect, Ji Haokong's strength far exceeded that of an ordinary late-stage Great Emperor. That was why Ji Haokong was so relaxed and didn't think much of Long Yu. But what he didn't know was that both Long Yu and Yi Ziwei's strength had already surpassed that of an ordinary late-stage Great Emperor. Yi Ziwei's Genesis Thunder Seal was especially powerful. If she were to suddenly unleash it, she could instantly kill a peak Great Emperor. What kind of terrifying technique was this? Yi Ziwei was only in the Emperor Realm, but her strength was already comparable to the strongest cultivators of the Shunwu world. Once Yi Ziwei steps into the Emperor Realm, her strength would be on par with the 5 emperors. But even someone as powerful as Yi Ziwei was defeated by Long Yu. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful the technique Long Yu used in the end was. The divine formation of 9 Abyss. This technique would be extremely terrifying even in outer space. However, it was impossible for the spectators to know this. Neither Yi Ziwei nor Long Yu's strength could be felt by the spectators, so there was no way for them to guess. This was the advantage of the competition of the strongest Emperor Realm. Because the competition was held in a completely different space, even though the spectators could observe the battle, they couldn't estimate the exact strength of the combatants. This was for the sake of the participants' safety. After all, no one wanted to be targeted after using their trump card. If that were to happen, then the competition of the strongest Emperor Realm would become meaningless. Who would be willing to use their strongest trump card in a competition like this? After defeating Blackblade, Long Yu immediately went up against Sikong Hui. As the personal disciple of the Flame Emperor, Sikong Hui's strength was naturally not ordinary. However, compared to Blackblade, he was still lacking. Long Yu didn't use the 9 Underworld Deterrence's Origin Force. Instead, he directly used the 9 underworld dragon breath to compete with Seekong Hui's thaumaturgy. In the end, Long Yu won and directly suppressed Seekong Hui. Seekong Hui was a straightforward person. He knew that his techniques couldn't compare to Long Yu's, so he proposed to fight Long Yu head-on. In the end, he still wasn't Long Yu's match and could only admit defeat and leave the stage. The last day, the 5th day, Long Yu's first match was against Yu Hanxin. However, the exciting battle that everyone anticipated didn't appear. After Yu Hanxin was teleported onto the stage, she actually directly admitted defeat to Long Yu. Even Long Yu was slightly surprised by this. However, Yu Hanxin was very carefree, and she smiled as she indicated that she wasn't a match for Yi Ziwei even after using all her strength. Since Long Yu was able to defeat Yi Ziwei, then he surely had a way to defeat her, Yu Hanxin. I don't want to be like Yi Ziwei and be almost killed by you by accident. Yu Hanxin smiled as she joked. Long Yu was slightly helpless towards this. In fact, Long Yu hadn't felt Yu Hanxin's true strength. Even though he felt that she couldn't compare to him, it was slightly regretful in the end that he didn't have a true battle with her. However, Yu Hanxin didn't want to fight Long Yu, and Long Yu couldn't do anything about it. Since she had already admitted defeat, he couldn't possibly chase her outside and fight her, right? As for Long Yu's last match, it was against the young genius of the Alliance of 5 Emperors Trading Company, Ji Caoyang. Ji Caoyang's strength was pretty good, and it was mainly because his techniques were extremely strange. Unfortunately, this fellow's techniques were utterly useless against Long Yu's balance control. After being directly seen through by Long Yu, he caught up to Ji Caoyang and utilized the absolute void domain to trap him. Ji Caoyang didn't have any capital to fight against Long Yu, so he could only admit defeat. The finals of the strongest Emperor realm. Everyone watched one exciting battle after another in the span of 5 days, and Long Yu became the final winner of this series of battles. 10 complete victories. Chapter 9:17. Out of the 11 participants in the finals, 6 of them were the direct disciples of the 5 emperors. Other than the Red Emperor, who had 2 direct disciples, the other 4 emperors each had 1 disciple. Red Emperor's disciples were Long Yu and Yu Hanxin, Lei Emperor's disciple Yi Ziwei, Yin Emperor's disciple Seekong Hui, Demon Emperor's disciple Black Knife, and Saint Emperor's disciple Qi Qingxi. As for the other 5, 1 was Su Jianbai from the Su Medicine Hall, 1 was Ji Caoyang from the Alliance Trading Company, 1 was Taiwu Suxin from the Taiwu Empire, 1 was Shuiwei Grace from the Watermoon Sword Sect, and the last one was the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor. The finals lasted for 5 days. Everyone fought 10 battles. Long Yu won all of them and became the champion. Yi Ziwei won 9 and became the second. Yu Hanxin won 8 and became the third. Black Knife won 7 and became the fourth. The Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor only had 6 victories at most, and that was the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor. This uncle would directly admit defeat when he met Long Yu, Black Saber, Yu Hanxin, and Yi Ziwei. But when he faced other people, he would use the divine thunder of the beginning to force his opponents to admit defeat at lightning speed. The Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor was ranked 5th. This was a positive number. From the bottom, 2 of them only won 2 battles. They were Su Jianbai from the Su Medicine Hall and Taiwu Suxin from the Taiwu Empire. As for how the last person would be chosen, it was very simple. Due to the 5 days of the finals, every 2 people would have a match, and Su Jianbai and Taiwu Suxin had also fought before. Regrettably, Taiwu Suxin lost to Su Jianbai. Therefore, according to the ranking, Taiwu Suxin was the last place. She was directly eliminated and lost the chance to compete with the geniuses from beyond the heavens. Su Jianbai managed to catch the last train of the 10 places. This made him very happy. His luck was really good. Moreover, Long Yu was the champion of this battle. Su Jianbai's previous 2 defeats to Long Yu couldn't be considered a humiliation at all. After all, Long Yu was the champion, the strongest Emperor Realm cultivator in the entire Shenwu world. Su Jianbai was an Emperor Realm martial cultivator. So what if he lost to Long Yu? When the results came out and Long Yu officially became the champion, countless people went into an uproar. Without a doubt, from today onwards, Long Yu has truly rising up in the entire Shenwu world. In particular, Long Yu is only a mid-Emperor Realm cultivator despite being the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm competition. If he were to step into the late Emperor Realm, or even the Great Emperor Realm, wouldn't there be no one who could stop him then? Countless forces that were enemies with Long Yu began to worry about their gains and losses. Among them, the most obvious were undoubtedly the people from the Tianqin Empire, the Shenluo Empire, and the High Clouds Empire. There was almost no need to think too much. After the Conference of Gods and Martial Emperors ended, the North Snow Empire would be promoted to an empire. At that time, they would definitely expand. As for the direction of expansion, was there even need to say it? At that time, whether it was the people from the Tianqin Empire, the Shenluo Empire, or the High Clouds Empire, they would have no choice but to bow down to Yu Hanxin. This was already a relatively good result. If Long Yu and Yu Hanxin joined hands to eliminate their enemies, then most of the people from these forces would die. At this moment, when Long Yu became the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm competition, although these three countries had a blood feud with Long Yu, they had no choice but to pay a visit to Long Yu and strive to resolve the feud between them. For the sake of survival, they had to endure. Even if they had a blood feud, they could only endure, otherwise they wouldn't even have the chance to take revenge. As for the forces that were on good terms with Long Yu, they were sincerely happy. For example, the Dragon Return Empire, the Lin Merchant Guild, and so on, they were all extremely glad that they had chosen to befriend Long Yu. It wouldn't be long before Long Yu grew to become the strongest person in the entire Shenwu world, which would affect the fate and situation of the entire Shenwu world. At that time, befriending Long Yu would naturally bring them a lot of benefits. Aside from that, there were also a few forces that didn't get along with Long Yu, but they weren't worried or afraid. Rather, they were very unhappy about it. For example, Lei Emperor's personal disciples, the Taiwu Empire, the Water Moon Sword Sect, the Ninth Sun Sect, and other forces all had a grudge against Long Yu. But even if Long Yu became the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm, he still wouldn't be a threat to them. Not to mention, in their eyes, Long Yu wouldn't be able to live for much longer. Although the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm had unlimited potential, if he died just like that, then what use was that potential? After the end of the strongest Emperor Realm, the 5 emperors gathered together and personally handed out the rewards for the top 1,000. Among them, as the champion of the strongest Emperor Realm, Long Yu's reward was naturally the most eye-catching. Aside from the legendary opportunity, he would also receive a total of 1 billion in cultivation resources, as well as a reasonable request from the 5 emperors. As long as it was something that the 5 emperors could do, they could ask for it. Countless people were curious as to what request Long Yu wanted. So, the 5 emperors invited Long Yu to the center of the 10,000 layers and asked Long Yu what request he wanted in front of everyone. Long Yu didn't refuse. He floated in the void of space at the center of the 10,000 layers, surrounded by the strongest 5 emperors of Shenwu world. The Holy Saint Emperor, the Kind Red Emperor, the Gloomy Demon Emperor, the Fiery Flame Emperor, and the Outspoken Lei Emperor. If a normal person was in this situation, they would be so nervous that they wouldn't even be able to speak. However, Long Yu wasn't affected by the 5 emperors' presence at all. He thought for a bit, then said, "I want to go to the Duankong Sacred Spring and observe it for 7 days." As soon as this request was put forward, the 5 emperors were a bit surprised. Then the other 4 emperors looked at the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor's snow-white hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes seemed to contain everything in the world. Hearing Long Yu's request, she was also a bit surprised. Observe the Duankong Sacred Spring? The Saint Emperor didn't know much about the Duankong Sacred Spring. She only knew that one could obtain a small bottle of Duankong Sacred Spring from the Duankong Sacred Spring every year. By absorbing the power of the Duankong Sacred Spring, a martial cultivator would be able to harmonize with spatial divine script, as well as comprehend a bit of Origin Grade Void Severance divine script. However, without a matching martial skill to use, Even if the Void Severance Divine Script was Origin grade, it wouldn't be able to exert too much power. And now, Long Yu actually asked to observe the Duankong Sacred Spring for 7 days? The Saint Emperor was a bit confused, but didn't think too much about it. Of course, she knew that her first disciple, Qi Tianming, had given Long Yu a meeting gift, which was a small bottle of Duankong Sacred Spring. Presumably, Long Yu had absorbed the power of the Duankong Sacred Spring and comprehended the Origin Grade Void Severance Divine Script, so he wanted to observe it and gain some inspiration regarding the Void Severance Divine Script. Thinking of this, the Sage Emperor smiled sweetly. "All right, I promise you. Tomorrow morning, I will take you to the location of the sky, severing Sacred Spring, and observe it for 7 days. But remember, the God Martial Emperor Assembly will begin 14 days later. You have to choose a trustworthy friend to participate in the God Martial Emperor Assembly. And I won't forget." Long Yu nodded. The Martial God Conference would be held in one of the 7 great forbidden areas, the 9 Nether Profound Palace. This trip would definitely allow Long Yu's strength to improve greatly, so he certainly wouldn't miss this opportunity. After receiving the Saint Emperor's guarantee, Long Yu looked into the void and said, "Senior Heavenly Thunder Emperor, I'll wait for you at the Sacred Tower tonight." Right now, what Long Yu wanted to know the most was the whereabouts of his father, as well as some secrets of the Heavenly Thunder Emperor. For example, why was his physical body so strong? Why did he know the power of the godly thunder of absolute beginning? What was the relationship between the Heavenly Thunder Emperor and Yi Wei? These were all things that Long Yu desperately wanted to know. Therefore, he issued an invitation to the Heavenly Thunder Emperor in front of everyone. Presumably, the Heavenly Thunder Emperor wouldn't mind doing this. Otherwise, Long Yu really didn't know how to invite the Heavenly Thunder Emperor. He didn't know where the Heavenly Thunder Emperor was, but if he spoke like this, the Heavenly Thunder Emperor would definitely be able to hear him. The cultivation resources awarded to the champion were not small, with a total value of 1 billion. But to Long Yu it was nothing. It must be known that Shi Yingwu had earned more than 10 billion in the gambling house, directly becoming a tycoon. What Long Yu cared more about was the Duankong Sacred Spring. It must be known that the Death Envoy had once said that the Duankong Sacred Spring was a super weapon, presumably at least at the endless level. As long as he could reach the place where the Duankong Sacred Spring was sealed, there would be a way to take it out. If Long Yu could obtain the Duankong Sacred Spring, his strength would definitely soar again, and the power of the Duankong Sacred Spring would definitely not be inferior to the Divine Formation 9 Abyss. Therefore, Long Yu was looking forward to it, and directly made this request to the 5 emperors. If the beautiful Saint Emperor knew that Long Yu would directly take away the Duankong Sacred Spring after observing the Duankong Sacred Spring, how would she feel? But then again, it would be too late for the Saint Emperor to regret it. Moreover, as the Saint Emperor, she probably wouldn't do such a thing. This was the biggest reason why Long Yu had racked his brains to become the strongest Emperor Realm champion. Otherwise, when Shi Yingwu had already earned more than 10 billion Shinbi, he really couldn't be bothered to compete for the championship, because it would be too high profile and not in line with his character. But for this request, for the possibility of obtaining the Duankong Sacred Spring, Long Yu still went all out, and the facts prove that he didn't lose out. As long as he could obtain the Duankong Sacred Spring, what did it matter if these methods were exposed now? At that time, Long Yu would have a new trump card, which he could use at the critical moment to defeat the strong enemy in a desperate situation and save his life. Next was the reward for the runner-up. Long Yu was the champion, and Yi Wei, who only lost to Long Yu once, was the runner-up. Her reward was not small either, a total of 500 million Shinbi worth of cultivation resources, the legendary opportunity, and the chance to choose an ancient supreme combat weapon from the alliance of 5 emperors. It was extremely difficult to obtain an ancient transcendent rank combat weapon during normal times. Even the direct disciples of the 5 emperors would not be able to get their hands on one so easily. It was only at times like this that the 5 emperors alliance would release an ancient transcendent rank combat weapon. Chapter 9:18. The third place's reward was similar to the second place's, but without an ancient supreme weapon, the total value of the cultivation resources was also slightly lower. However, from the fourth place onwards, the rewards were much lower. Up to the top 10, they were only rewarded with 100 million shinbi worth of cultivation resources and a legendary quota. From the 11th to the 100th place, they were rewarded with 10 million shinbi worth of cultivation resources, and from the 100th to the 1000th place, they were rewarded with 1 million shinbi worth of cultivation resources. The rewards were getting smaller and smaller, but for normal cultivators, 1 million shinbi was still a considerable amount. After the rewards were distributed, the 5 emperors gave another speech, mainly to remind the top 10 Emperor Realm cultivators that they would gather at the Sacred Towers meeting hall in 2 months to receive a chance to increase their strength. Although the 5 emperors couldn't tell them about this chance, most people knew that it was to head to one of the 7 forbidden areas of Shunwu World to compete against the geniuses from beyond the heavens and increase the strength of their inner world. However, the event in 2 months was meaningless to most cultivators, and some might have already forgotten about it. Right now, everyone was looking forward to the Conference of Divine Martial Emperors in half a month's time. The Conference of Divine Martial Emperors was a grand event for the succession of the 5 emperors, but the current 5 emperors hadn't been replaced for 150 years. Among them, the Saint Emperor became the Saint Emperor 150 years ago, and the other 4 emperors have been on the throne for even longer. For the Shunwu world, the Conference of Divine Martial Emperors that was held once every 50 years was definitely the biggest event. For normal cultivators, the most anticipated event was to head to the 9 Serenities Black Palace, form a team of 2, and obtain some benefits from the 9 Serenities Black Palace's formation. Everyone was looking forward to the Conference of Divine Martial Emperors, and as for what would happen to Long Yu and the other 9 in 2 months, no one really cared about it. The Tournament of Divine Martial Emperors officially ended after the rewards were distributed. Everyone would be sent out of the 10,000 floors, and their King Life medallions would be taken back. However, the atmosphere in the holy city of the 5 emperors didn't die down because of this. Instead, the discussion about the tournament of the strongest emperor realm became even more heated. Because Long Yu became the champion of the tournament of the strongest emperor realm, he became the hottest topic in the entire holy city of the 5 emperors. After returning to the Dragon Domain, Long Yu rested while waiting for the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor to arrive. Shi Yingwu and the others were also resting in the Dragon Domain. The current Dragon Domain had been transformed by Qin Yashuang and Zi Su into a pretty good courtyard. There were small bridges and flowing water everywhere. The scenery was elegant. It was no longer as desolate as before. Qin Yashuang and Zi Su didn't participate in the gathering of the strongest king realm and emperor realm because they were in seclusion. They wanted to advance from the late stage of the king realm to the emperor realm. This was a very crucial moment for them. Therefore, they didn't care about the king realm. With their strength, they wouldn't be able to get any ranking. Qin Yashuang and Zi Su were very powerful when they joined forces. However, if they fought alone, they wouldn't be much stronger than ordinary martial cultivators. Participating in the tournament of the strongest king realm was purely a waste of time. In the evening, the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor still hadn't arrived. However, Long Yu waited for good news from Liao Lele. At this moment, Liao Lele had already merged with the endless grade medicine cauldron, the bitter sea medicine cauldron, to the extent of Tianqi. In other words, it was the 3rd level of synchronization. Therefore, she could unleash the bitter sea medicine cauldron's powerful refining ability. Recently, she had been studying the ancient dragon and elephant bones body refining elixir. At this time, she finally succeeded. Liao Lele came over with 3 elixir bottles. When she saw Long Yu, she said happily, "Long Yu, look, I've refined the ancient dragon and elephant bones you gave me into elixirs. There are a total of 48 elixirs, divided into 3 grades. The ancient upper gray dragon and elephant elixir, the ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant body elixir, and the ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant ancient elixir." Long Yu was also pleasantly surprised by this. After his battle with the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor, he clearly knew what physical strength meant. Now, although his dead realm body refining had reached the completion realm, compared to the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor, he was still far behind. Now, these 3 dragon and elephant elixirs would undoubtedly be of great help to him, allowing his physical strength to reach a new level. Liao Leilei's talent in refining elixirs had always been very good. Now, not only had he stepped into the King Path secret realm, but he had also merged with the Bitter Sea Medicine Cauldron. Refining ancient great elixirs was not a strange thing. However, refining archaic great elixirs was not so easy. If it was refined by an ordinary person, at most, he could refine dragon and elephant elixir and elephant body elixir. As for the ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant ancient elixir, it was impossible to successfully refine it. Liao Leilei was able to refine dragon and elephant ancient elixir completely because of the Bitter Sea Medicine Cauldron. Although they were all ancient great elixirs and the materials were roughly the same, these 3 elixirs of different grades could be taken 1 each. For Long Yu, of course, he took 3 each. There were 6 ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant body elixir, and Long Yu directly took 3. There were 16 ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant body elixir, and Long Yu also took 3. Finally, there were 26 ancient upper gray dragon and elephant elixir, and Long Yu also took 3. As for the remaining elixirs, Long Yu asked Liao Leilei to keep some for himself and gave the rest to Hong Yu. He asked Hong Yu to put these elixirs into the property of the Heavenly Mandate Manor, and martial arts practitioners of the Heavenly Mandate Manor could exchange for them with their contribution points. Of course, Liao Leilei had no objection to this. He took 1 elixir of each grade and gave the rest to Hong Yu. Then, Shi Yingwu directly donated 10 billion Xinbi to the Heavenly Mandate Manor and received countless contribution points. Then, she also took 2 elixirs each. In this way, the ancient supreme gray dragon and elephant ancient elixir was gone. After all, there were only 6 in total. Of course, Long Yu had already guessed this. However, the effect of these body-refining elixirs for Shi Yingwu would definitely be better than for others. After all, Shi Yingwu also cultivated the immemorial supreme grade body-refining martial arts technique of the Dead Realm. It did not take long to take elixirs. Long Yu directly began to take these 9 elixirs. First was the ancient supreme grade elixir, the dragon and elephant elixir. There were 3 dragon and elephant elixirs in total. After Long Yu took them, the rich medicinal power further refined his physical body. After taking 3 dragon and elephant elixirs, his physical body was strengthened by 10%. After all, the strength of his physical body had been enhanced by the immemorial supreme grade body of the Dead Realm. It had become very terrifying. The ancient supreme grade elixir did not have much effect on him. Next was the ancient supreme grade elixir, the dragon and elephant elixir. The medicinal power of this elixir was 10 times more than that of the dragon and elephant elixir. After taking all 3, the strength of Long Yu's physical body was directly strengthened by 50%. Of course, the dragon and elephant elixir had the best effect. This was the ancient supreme great elixir. There were 3 in total. After taking all 3 elixirs, Long Yu took them all in 1 hour, and the strength of his physical body was directly doubled. This was an extremely terrifying change. He could feel that his physical body had finally become a real wall of copper and bones of iron. His defensive ability had become extremely strong. Before taking these elixirs, Long Yu could not resist the attacks of Easy Wei, Black Knife, and the others without taking any measures. But now, with the strength of his physical body, Long Yu could already ignore the ordinary attacks of Easy Wei, Black Knife, and the others. Of course, if they used the Imperial Way, Long Yu would still have to defend himself. But with the rapid increase in the strength of his physical body, it was obvious that his ability to survive would become even more perfect. Even if I used the Dragon Bone Break on myself, 1 Dragon Bone Break wouldn't be able to kill me directly. However, the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor withstood the attacks of the Dragon Bone Break 3 times and came out unscathed. How terrifying is the strength of his physical body. Long Yu recalled the scene of his battle with the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor. When he was suppressed by the 8 trigrams heaven-suppressing technique, the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor withstood the Dragon Bone break 3 times with his physical body and actually only suffered a slight injury. Even the current Long Yu still felt that this was a little unimaginable. Long Yu absolutely had reason to believe that his current physical strength was no weaker than an ordinary expert at the late stage of the Emperor realm, or even an expert at the peak of the Emperor realm. However, the physical strength of the Thunder Emperor was at least 3 times stronger than his. There must be some secret on this person. Of course, Long Yu was looking forward to this very much. At that time, the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor had said that he would visit Long Yu after the competition of the strongest Emperor realm. At that time, the secret of the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor should be answered, and at the same time, he could get information about the whereabouts of his father, Long Zaiqian. Long Yu did not send people back to the heavenly mandate manor to bring his mother, Bei Yuyao. After all, the news was not clear yet. If there was no news at that time, wouldn't Bei Yuyao be even more disappointed? Therefore, Long Yu planned to wait until he knew some news before telling Bei Yuyao about the matter. The night was coming, and the twilight was coming. If the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor was coming, he should be arriving at this time. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu talked about the changes after taking the Dragon Elephant Elixir while waiting for the arrival of the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor. However, he did not know that the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor, who was about to visit him, was stopped by someone not long ago, outside the sacred city of the 5 emperors, in an extremely spacious and uninhabited valley. The unshaven face of the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor had a solemn expression that had never been seen before. Around him, there were several illusory figures floating in the air. These illusory figures seemed to be talking with the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor about something. Hearing the words of these illusory figures, a bitter smile appeared on the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor's face. He thought to himself, "Boy Long Yu, I'm afraid I won't be able to find you. Forget it. With the talent you've displayed today, you'll come into contact with all of this sooner or later. I'll wait for your eyes." No one knew what had happened to the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor. However, as soon as the competition of the strongest Emperor realm ended, the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor disappeared, and no one had seen him since. Chapter 919. The night passed quickly. Long Yu was very disappointed because the heavenly Thunder Emperor did not come. According to the agreement, he had to go to the Duankong sacred spring with the Holy Emperor today to observe. Did the heavenly Thunder Emperor break his promise? Or did he meet with some accident? Long Yu thought to himself. He was very puzzled. Logically speaking, the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor looked very forthright and should not be a person who went back on his word. Since he did not come last night, either he encountered an accident or he did not see the invitation in front of everyone. No matter what, Long Yu did not plan to wait any longer. He only told Qin Yashuang and Zi Su, who had finally broken through to the Emperor realm, that if the heavenly Thunder Emperor came, they must receive him well. If possible, they should leave the heavenly Thunder Emperor in the Dragon Domain and wait for Long Yu's return. Then, before the Holy Emperor came, Long Yu went to the Azura ancient palace outside the holy city of the 5 emperors to see the death envoy. Although the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor didn't come, which made Long Yu quite disappointed, there were some things that he should ask the death envoy about. For example, Yi Ziwei's absolute beginning thunder seal, as well as the absolute beginning divine thunder and absolute beginning thunder barrier that the heavenly prison Thunder Emperor used. What was so special about these means? This was a question that Long Yu had to get to the bottom of, because this was the only power that could make him feel threatened so far. Was this another kind of power that surpassed the level of divine text? In the Azura ancient palace, Long Yu saw the death envoy again. He also saw the 7 members of the Death Legion who cultivated with the death envoy other than Shi Yingwu. These 7 people had the same cultivation level as Shi Yingwu. They were all in the late-stage king realm. Even if they were not as strong as Shi Yingwu, there was not much difference between them. If the 8 of them joined hands to cast the Dead Man binding spell formation, they could even trap an ordinary Emperor Realm expert. On top of that, Shi Yingwu had an ancient high-rank combat weapon, the Nether Lamp of Suffering, which could increase the power of the formation and turn the Dead Binding Seal formation into a killing move. To know that these 8 people were merely King Realm cultivators. Yet, they were able to trap Emperor Realm cultivators. One could see how magical this array was. When Long Yu was only a late-stage Immortal King, he had a hard time dealing with a great Emperor. But now, Sunset Dance and the others had a much easier time trapping their opponents. At the very least, they could easily crush a mid-stage Great Emperor powerhouse. If all 8 of them had broken through to the Emperor Realm, then the formation's power would be even more terrifying. However, all 8 of them were still a little far from the Emperor Realm in the short term. There was no way they could enter the Emperor Realm so quickly. Senior Death Envoy, I've fought for a chance to observe the Duankong's Sacred Spring. I hope you'll do as you said and unseal the Duankong's Sacred Spring, as well as teach me the secret method to control the Duankong's Sacred Spring. When Long Yu saw the Death Envoy, he straightforwardly stated his purpose. He had interacted with the Death Envoy for a long time, so there was no need to pay attention to etiquette and the like. The Death Envoy's illusory figure flickered, and he laughed wickedly. I didn't think you'd really get a chance like this. The Duankong's Sacred Spring is an endless combat weapon. You're not filial enough to give me some benefits, and you're trying to get your hands on such a treasure? Don't worry. Long Yu smiled and took out 5 divine rune source stones. These are the stones Long Yu had asked Shi Yingwu for 1 billion Shunbi, which he'd exchanged with the alliance of 5 emperors. It was a show of filial piety to the Death Envoy. After all, the Death Envoy had taught him for so long that he could be considered his master. Seeing the 5 divine rune source stones, the Death Envoy's voice grew excited. 5. Good job, kid. I didn't think you'd get all of them in one go. All of them? Senior Envoy, what do you want these divine rune source stones for? Aren't you supposed to restore your strength? Long Yu was a little confused. He'd thought that the Death Envoy wanted the divine rune source stones to restore his strength, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. Otherwise, the more the better. How could he possibly collect all of them? The Death Envoy laughed cruelly. You don't need to worry about that. Whatever this envoy wants to do, it's only good for you and not bad for you. Since I have these 5 divine rune source stones, I won't mind teaching you the method to control and seal the Duankong's Sacred Spring. Come, listen carefully to this envoy. After that, the Death Envoy told Long Yu the method to obtain the Duankong's Sacred Spring in detail, mainly the method to undo the seal, as well as the method to control the Duankong's Sacred Spring. Besides the Death Envoy, no one else in Shenwu world knows about these 2 methods, not even a powerhouse as strong as the 5 emperors. Long Yu's comprehension was very high, so the Death Envoy didn't need to tell him a second time for Long Yu to memorize everything he said. After that, Long Yu asked the Death Envoy another question. Sir Envoy, have you heard of the Genesis Thunder Seal? Genesis? Hearing that, the Death Envoy was a bit surprised. Kid, how did you hear about this thing? I have a friend who was born with a lightning mark on her forehead. It's called Genesis Thunder Seal. Long Yu then told him about Yi Ziwei's situation, including how she used the Genesis Thunder Seal as a weapon in battle, as well as how she was able to unleash the power of an endless level weapon. Oh my, it really is the Genesis Thunder Seal. Hearing that, the Death Envoy's eyes lit up. Kid, you have to hold on to this girl. The Genesis Thunder Seal isn't that easy to come across. Do you know what the word Genesis means? I don't, of course. Long Yu could only shake his head. He was also very curious about it. I'll have to start from the beginning. The Death Envoy shook his head, as if he didn't know what to say. After thinking for a bit, he said, the place you are in right now is called Shenwu World. More accurately speaking, this is Geo Dragon Emperor's mini-world. Maybe you don't know, but when you take a step further on the path of martial arts, surpassing the Emperor Realm, that realm is called the Ruler's Secret Realm. When you are in the Emperor's Secret Realm, your inner world has just formed, but once you step into the Ruler's Secret Realm, your inner world will transform into a mini-world. The biggest difference between a mini-world and an inner world is that the mini-world can naturally give birth to life, becoming a world similar to the real world. An inner world has already been born in your body, but you should know that the current inner world in your body won't be able to give birth to natural life for many years. But once it transforms into a mini-world, it will be different. The sun, moon, and stars, the rise and fall of the tides, the evolution of life, everything will be no different from the real world. The real world is the outer world. In the real world, there are countless sources of godly runes that continuously give birth to the power of godly runes. And the power of godly runes has already filled the entire real world. But the power of godly runes is only a man-made power. The true source of power in the real world is called the Genesis 5 elements. Hearing that, Long Yu was completely stunned. Even though the Death Envoy had not finished speaking, Long Yu was already shocked by what he had said. The power of the divine runes was merely a man-made power? How is that possible? When Long Yu used the power of godly runes, he always thought that it was the most natural source of power, but from the Death Envoy, he heard a completely different explanation. The power of godly runes is only man-made power, but the source of power in the world is called the Genesis 5 elements. So the power of godly runes is man-made. Just how powerful does one have to be to create the power of godly runes? Long Yu couldn't help but exclaim. Of course, the godly runes were created by God. The Death Envoy casually replied. Are you sure it was God, and not some particularly powerful person? When Long Yu heard this, his hair immediately stood on end, and he could not help but ask, who knows? The Death Envoy cackled. In any case, I've never seen a living God, so the less you know about God, the better. All you need to know is that the Genesis 5 elements is the most basic source of power in the world beyond. As for the Genesis lightning seal, it's not an endless grade warrior, but something that surpasses it. In the world beyond, it's called a godly rune, the most powerful weapon a martial cultivator can wield. Godly rune. Yet again, Long Yu was shocked to hear a new term. The thunder seal on Yi Ziwei's forehead wasn't an unbounded weapon, but something that surpassed it. It was called a god-grade absolute primordium artifact. Even Dragon Emperor Jiyo didn't get the absolute beginning divinity grade. Brat, do you think you should seize the opportunity to take that little girl down? The Death Envoy cackled. I can't believe someone in a minor world like this has a godly rune. Even in the world beyond, this girl will be fought over by countless forces. You'd better make the first move. Long Yu knew what the Death Envoy meant by making the first move. He was obviously asking him to make Yi Ziwei his woman as soon as possible. What, you're not willing? Seeing Long Yu frown, the Death Envoy grumbled. Don't you know that if that girl has a godly rune, she'll most likely surpass Jiyo Dragon Emperor in the future? She'll be much stronger than you and me. If you don't seize the opportunity now, you'll never have another chance like this in the future. Only in Jiyo Dragon Emperor's minor world will you have such an opportunity. If you're in the real world beyond, or any other minor world, once a creature with a godly rune appears, they'll be groomed by the major forces from a young age. They won't give outsiders a chance. The Death Envoy scolded. It's not that I don't want to, I'm just wondering if I can take her Genesis lightning seal for myself. Chapter 920. It could be said that the Death Envoy admired Long Yu's idea of obtaining the absolute beginning thunder seal from the bottom of his heart. However, he still seriously thought about it, then nodded and said, strictly speaking, it's not that there's no way, but it's basically impossible to achieve. How about it? Long Yu was only asking casually. He didn't expect the Death Envoy to actually have a way. He was shocked. That is to get her to give the Genesis Thunder Seal to you. That's the only way you can obtain it. However, the Genesis Thunder Seal is definitely her everything. It's almost impossible to get her to give it to you. The Death Envoy sighed. Long Yu was speechless. Get Yi Ziwei to give him the Genesis Thunder Seal of her own accord? That was simply impossible. It was just like how he wouldn't give the Dragon Bone Tower to anyone else, not even the person he trusted the most. As such, Long Yu could only give up on the idea. There are only 5 types of the Genesis 5 elemental powers. Long Yu asked. That's right. The Genesis 5 elements are metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. One of the manifestations of metal is lightning. So the Genesis thunder is the most original lightning in the world. The Death Envoy explained, for example, the tribulation thunder you encountered in the heavenly realm is a type of divine power. It's 100 times weaker than the Genesis thunder. Even the Joyo Dragon Emperor didn't obtain the Genesis 5 elements? Asked Long Yu again. That's right. The Genesis 5 elements are very rare. Unless someone like Yi Ziwei was born with the Genesis Thunder Seal, you can only wait for some fortuitous encounters and get lucky. The Death Envoy said, in the future, if you encounter the power of the absolute beginning 5 elements in outer space, you must not miss it. Although the possibility is very small, once you obtain the power of the absolute beginning 5 elements, your strength will truly far surpass ordinary people. I understand. Long Yu nodded his head and was about to turn around and leave. He had just learned some information about the Duankong's sacred spring from the Envoy of Death. He knew about the methods to seal and control it, so he naturally prepared to go to the Duankong's sacred spring. The Holy Emperor should be arriving around this time. When Long Yu returned to the sacred tower, he saw the snow-haired Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor and a cabinet elder were waiting for Long Yu beside the teleportation array. When Long Yu arrived, the Saint Emperor smiled. Since you're here, let's go. The Duankong Sacred Spring was located at the peak of an extremely high mountain range. This mountain range was at least a few 100,000 li above the ground of Shenwu World. Unless you're an Emperor Realm cultivator, you won't be able to reach such a place. Because in Shenwu World, at an altitude of over 10,000 li, there's a layer of air current that prevents anyone from going through. It was similar to the 10,000 layers of heavenly stars on Heavenly Mandate Island. 10,000 miles above Shenwu World, this air current barrier was also called the Heavenly Stars, but the strength of this Heavenly Stars was much stronger than the one on Heavenly Mandate Island. But now that Long Yu and the Holy Emperor were teleported here, they don't need to go through this layer of Heaven Chi. The scene in front of Long Yu flashed, and he and the Holy Emperor were teleported to another palace that was rumored to have a teleportation formation. As soon as they leave this palace, they'll be able to see the Duankong Sacred Spring. This palace was built by the alliance of 5 emperors on this mountain peak, mainly to observe one of the 7 forbidden areas, the Death Star Whirlpool. But later on, they discovered the Duankong Sacred Spring in the void of space around here. The Holy Emperor briefly explained. Long Yu nodded and followed the Holy Emperor out of the palace, arriving in the air above the mountain peak. As far as he could see a sea of golden clouds glistening under the sunlight. As he looked up, his vision started to darken. High up in the sky, in the endless void of space, there was a giant whirlpool of air current that seemed to have existed since time immemorial. That was one of the 7 forbidden areas of Shenwu World, the Death Star Whirlpool. Each of the 7 forbidden areas of Shenwu World wasn't a place that normal people could enter. Especially this Death Star Whirlpool, even if 5 emperors couldn't get close to it. At the edge of the continent of Shenwu World was a sea of death aura that surrounded the entire Shenwu World. The Sea of Death Aura and the Death Star Whirlpool were 2 of the forbidden areas. Aside from that, there was also the place where the Shenwu Imperial Convention was held, the 9 Serenities Palace, which was also one of the 7 forbidden areas. There was also a place that Long Yu and the other top 10 Emperor Realm cultivators would be heading to in 2 months. It was called the Shenwu Realm Core, which was also one of the 7 forbidden areas. The Shenwu Realm Core contained a very dense amount of inner world energy, which even attracted the geniuses from beyond the heavens to explore it and find opportunities to improve themselves. Following the Holy Emperor's instructions, Long Yu looked up at a relatively secluded corner of the sky and saw the small whirlpool she was talking about. Different from the Death Star Whirlpool in the void of space, this small whirlpool was light blue in color and was slowly spinning. Below this whirlpool floated a stable stone platform with a small bottle on top of it. The bottle was already half filled with a light blue liquid. It was the Duankong Sacred Spring. I can see where the Duankong Sacred Spring is. It should be inside that small whirlpool, right? Long Yu asked the Holy Emperor. The Holy Emperor's snow-white hair fluttered in the cold wind, making her look extremely elegant. She glanced at the small whirlpool and nodded. That's it. There's nothing else worth paying attention to in such a desolate place. I will come back to pick you up in 7 days. During this time, you should carefully observe the Duankong Sacred Spring and try to comprehend something from it, although she said that. The Holy Emperor didn't have much hope. It wasn't that she hadn't observed the whirlpool of the Duankong Sacred Spring before, but she hadn't been able to learn anything from it. Moreover, Long Yu was only asking for 7 days, so it was even more unlikely that she would be able to learn anything from it. Thank you for your trouble, Holy Emperor. Long Yu said respectfully to the Holy Emperor, but he was feeling a little conflicted inside. He didn't know how the Holy Emperor would react if he took the Duankong Sacred Spring 7 days later. Although it didn't belong to the Holy Emperor, it was still under her control. If Long Yu took away just like that, would the Holy Emperor have anything to say about it? For now, the Holy Emperor seemed to be treating Long Yu very well. But when the time came, it was hard to say what would happen. Long Yu had to be prepared. After the Holy Emperor left, Long Yu began to immerse himself in studying the Duankong Sacred Spring. The small whirlpool was a powerful sealing formation that the Geo-Dragon Emperor had created countless years ago. It was used to seal the self-aware, unbounded warrior, the Duankong Sacred Spring. Countless years had passed, and the self-awareness of the Duankong Sacred Spring had long since been worn away by the sealing formation. Because of that, the Death Envoy had urged Long Yu to get his hands on the Duankong Sacred Spring. Originally, the Geo-Dragon Emperor had wanted to wear away the self-awareness of the Duankong Sacred Spring and make it his. But he didn't expect that not long after, he would fall, and the Duankong Sacred Spring had been buried here for who knew how many years. Long Yu carefully observed the whirlpool for 3 days. The whirlpool was a sealing formation, and with his balance control, Long Yu could see a weak point in it. The Duankong Sacred Spring was constantly flowing out of that weak point, and the Holy Emperor kept it in a bottle and treated it as a decent treasure. Now that Long Yu had the means to break the sealing formation, the method the Death Envoy had taught him should be no problem. 3 days later, Long Yu was sure that the sealing formation was as the Death Envoy had said, and he immediately began. If it had been anyone else, even if they had Long Yu's method, they wouldn't have been able to break the sealing formation. Long Yu's method to break the Duankong Sacred Spring was based on balance control. He was too weak at the moment, so he could only use tricks to break the seal. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have known where to start. But for Long Yu, it took him less than a day to break the seal on the Duankong Sacred Spring. A day later, the light blue light in the sky exploded, and the small whirlpool dissipated. The gurgling water that had been sealed inside floated out. Long Yu was already prepared for this. He formed a hand seal and gathered the gurgling light blue water in his hand. The water contained an incomparably dense power of the spatial, shattering divine characters. Furthermore, when combined together, it actually recorded some sort of profound, immemorial martial skill that could unleash an extremely strong power of the spatial shattering divine characters. An unbounded fighter, a primeval martial skill. In fact, if Long Yu's affinity with it reached a higher level, he could even learn an unbounded fighter skill from it. It really is an unbounded fighter. Long Yu couldn't help but smile when he felt the light blue water twining around his hands. He had never seen a fighter in this state before, but now he was seeing it for himself. A fighter in its liquid state was impossible to defend against, not to mention the fact that the water contained the power of the space-breaking divine script, which was an extremely offensive space-type divine script. Although Long Yu didn't know how to use this power yet, once he mastered it, his strength would undoubtedly rise to a whole new level. After breaking the seal on the Duankong Sacred Spring, Long Yu didn't immediately start studying it. Instead, he stored it in the independent dimension of the Netherworld Dragon Blade and began to think of a good plan. There were only 3 days left before the Sage Emperor arrived, and Long Yu couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't do anything to him. But now, Long Yu couldn't leave this place. After all, only the Sage Emperor could activate the teleportation formation, and other places were blocked by the Heavenly Dipper barrier. No matter what, Long Yu couldn't leave this mountain peak. Chapter 921. After escorting Long Yu to the Duankong sacred spring for 7 days, the Saint Emperor once again returned to the top of the mountain, ready to take Long Yu away. She was a bit expectant of Long Yu. Up until now, no one had ever been able to discover anything from the Duankong sacred spring, and to the Saint Emperor, the Duankong sacred spring that could only be harvested once a year wasn't anything particularly good. So if Long Yu could discover something from it, that would be a good thing. However, when the Sage Emperor returned, he was shocked when he walked out of the mountain peak to take a look. What's going on? The Duankong sacred spring vortex that had been here for several hundred years had disappeared, and on the floating stone platform below, Long Yu's body was slanted, as if something had happened to him. The Saint Emperor hurriedly flew forward to check on Long Yu's condition, only to find that he had only fainted. This caused the Saint Emperor to frown. Just what was going on? Could it be someone else came here and took the Duankong sacred spring away? It can't be someone from Shunwu world, which means it's someone from beyond the sky. But how could it be so coincidental that it happened just as I was bringing Long Yu here to observe? The Saint Emperor continued to speculate about the possible scenarios, but quickly shook her head and stopped thinking about it. If it was someone from beyond the sky, even she, the Saint Emperor, wouldn't be able to do anything about it. No matter what, she only needs to wait for Long Yu to wake up and ask Long Yu what happened. Thinking that, the Saint Emperor reached her hand out and picked up Long Yu's body. The elegant white-robed figure quickly left this place, returned to the palace at the top of the mountain, and used the warp formation to leave. Inside the sacred tower, the Saint Emperor and the Scarlet Emperor were standing together. Behind the two of them was an elegant courtyard. In the courtyard, Long Yu was lying unconscious. The Saint Emperor's snow-white hair drifted in the wind. He possessed the bearing of a grandmaster, but he frowned slightly at this moment. The Red Emperor smiled amiably and said, Long Yu's condition is not bad. It seems that even if someone from beyond the heavens made a move, they have no ill intentions towards us. They just took away the Duankong sacred spring. Long Yu will wake up tomorrow at most. Let's ask him about his condition then. That's all we can do. It's a blessing that he's fine. The Sage Emperor shook his head and said, I'll be leaving first. Just send me a message when he wakes up. With that, the Saint Emperor disappeared with a flash. It was clear that she did not care too much about this matter. She was just slightly worried about Long Yu. If Long Yu knew this, he wouldn't have put himself in a coma. That night, Long Yu woke up from his coma. Although he was in a coma, he had a clear understanding of the situation outside. In fact, Long Yu could clearly feel how the Sage Emperor had felt when he had been hugged. When he woke up, he had appeared in an elegantly decorated room. Just as he sat up, the Red Emperor's voice came from outside. Long Yu, you're awake? Master. Long Yu pretended to be surprised. Why am I here? Although he was sure that the Sage Emperor had no ill intentions towards him, since Long Yu had put on an act, he naturally had to go all the way. Since the Sage Emperor did not intend to pursue the matter, he could just casually fool around and let it go. The Sage Emperor went to the mountain peak to find you, but found that you were unconscious and the Duankong sacred spring had disappeared. Did someone else appear? The Red Emperor walked into the room. He was still wearing a red robe as he asked with concern. Someone else? I didn't see it. While I was observing the Duankong sacred spring, I felt the whirlpool suddenly expand. A blue stream of water surged into my body. Then I lost consciousness. Long Yu pretended to stand up in a hurry. He raised his hand, and a blue stream of water appeared in his hand. This is it. This is the Duankong sacred spring? The Red Emperor was stunned. He was stunned for 2 breaths time before he finally said, Looks like this is your opportunity. You actually broke the seal on the Duankong sacred spring and obtained this battle weapon. This is a battle weapon? Long Yu pretended to be curious and asked. It should be. After the Scarlet Emperor recovered from his shock, He quickly calmed down and nodded with a smile. Have a good rest for the next few days and prepare to participate in the Divine Martial Emperor meeting. You might even obtain other opportunities in the Nine Nether Profound Palace. Yes, Master. Long Yu nodded. The crisis that Long Yu thought would happen was resolved in such a clever way. But most importantly, the Sage Emperor didn't have any ill intentions towards him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get out of trouble so easily even if he had pretended to be unconscious. Since the Sage Emperor didn't have any problems, Long Yu would spend the next few days studying the Duankong Sacred Spring. It wasn't easy to harmonize with the Duankong Sacred Spring. Long Yu didn't focus on that for the time being. Instead, he began to study the Archean martial technique recorded in the Duankong Sacred Spring. Supreme Grade Archean Martial Technique, Void Rending Strike. This was a martial technique that complemented with the Void Rending Divine Rune. Coupled with the Duankong Sacred Spring, an unending battle weapon, Long Yu only needed to cultivate it to the beginner level, and he would be able to unleash the power equivalent to an Imperial Dao technique. Up until now, the Void Rending Strike could be said to be the highest grade martial technique that Long Yu could cultivate. If Long Yu didn't have some special tricks up his sleeves, he might actually lose to Guyun Tian. After learning the Void Rending Strike, Long Yu began sparring with the Envoy of Death. Although the Envoy of Death only had consciousness, he could gather the power of the divine runes of death to form a Death Hunter and have it fight against Long Yu. In the next 4 days of sparring, Long Yu was getting more and more familiar with this move. As soon as he attacked, the Void Rending Strike would gather a blade ray that instantly appeared inside his opponent's body and cut him in half. Normally speaking, Shun Wu World's cultivators didn't pay much attention to their physique. Aside from the Heavenly Prison Lightning Emperor, Long Yu hadn't seen anyone with a strong physique. That's why the Void Rending Strike was almost invincible in Shun Wu World. No matter who wielded it, they could easily kill someone stronger than them. However, now that Long Yu had become the champion of the strongest Emperor realm, it wouldn't be long before he would become an Emperor realm powerhouse. At that time, Long Yu's opponents wouldn't be Shun Wu World's cultivators, but those geniuses from beyond the heavens who were similarly talented in martial arts. Moreover, those geniuses' backgrounds would definitely be much stronger than the current Long Yu. At this time, letting Long Yu master the Duankong Sacred Spring and Void Rending Strike could be said to make up for some of his shortcomings. After all, the Envoy of Death had said that those geniuses from beyond the heavens were likely to have an endless level weapon. If Long Yu didn't have an endless level weapon, he would be at a huge disadvantage in battle. But now, that disadvantage wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be easy to cultivate the Void Rending Strike to minor completion. After sparring for 4 days, Long Yu left the Azura Ancient Palace and returned to the Sacred Tower. He was going to find Shi Yingwu and team up with her to participate in the Divine Martial Imperial Conference. Long Yu didn't notice that right after he left, the Envoy of Death consciousness had a gratified expression on his face. Then, he let out a deep sigh and disappeared. Ever since he followed Long Yu to the holy city of the 5 emperors, the Envoy of Death hadn't gone anywhere else. He had stayed here all this time. But now, he had disappeared from the Azura Ancient Palace, and no one knew where he went. Chapter 922. In the 10,000 floors of the Sacred Tower, over 1 million Emperor Path Secret Realm cultivators were gathered together. Ever since the strongest Emperor Realm competition ended, everyone had been staying in the holy city of the 5 emperors for half a month. Various forces from all over the world interacted with each other, which had a very positive impact on the martial path of the Shenwu world. After all, this was the conference of godly martial emperors that was held once every 50 years. If it was just the strongest Emperor Realm and strongest Emperor Realm competition that was held once every 7 years, it wouldn't have attracted over 1 million people. This was a grand gathering of martial arts. The empires and sects that came from the frigid lands of the north found the sects and empires that came from the south. They exchanged some relatively peak martial techniques, pill recipes, and so on. In any case, even if the other party knew about it, it wouldn't affect them too much. However, their own side's strength would increase greatly, further strengthening their ruling power in the nearby regions. This was a great opportunity for any force to strengthen themselves. Of course, the major forces wouldn't miss this chance. If they fell behind in this grand gathering, they would be beaten up when they returned after the conference of godly martial emperors. However, regardless of how the martial arts exchange went in this half a month from now on, everyone's attention was on the conference of godly martial emperors. The conference of godly martial emperors was held in one of the 7 forbidden grounds, the Netherworld Palace. The 9 Nether Profound Palace was divided into a total of 9 levels, and it only opened once every 50 years. Those who participated in the Martial God Conclave could not only watch the various peak Emperor Realm experts compete for the position of the 5 emperors in the first level of the 9 Nether Profound Palace, but they could also attempt to enter the deeper levels. If they were lucky, they might obtain many opportunities, but if they were unlucky, they might die inside. This was a grand gathering, and for the majority of people, it was also an opportunity. According to the Death Envoy, because Shunwu World was already a miniature world and not an inner world, the 9 Nether Profound Palace, which was filled with 9 Nether Godly Script, would give birth to a few treasures every 50 years, which could be used to refine pills, weapons, and so on. Aside from these, the 9 Nether Profound Palace also had many martial skill Jade tags that Dragon Emperor Jiuyu stole in the past. There was a condition to enter the 9 Nether Profound Palace, and that was that 2 people had to be partners and sign a life and death contract at the entrance of the 9 Nether Profound Palace. If you die, I die. If you live, I live. No one in Shunwu World knew why this was the case, but Long Yu found out from the Death Envoy that when the Jiuyu Dragon Emperor was only at the Thaumaturgy realm, he was betrayed by someone. Although he managed to kill the person who betrayed him at that time, it also gave birth to the natural thaumaturgy called the 9 Serenities Palace. The Jiuyu Dragon Emperor's innate thaumaturgy was merely one of the 7 pillars of the Shunwu world. When the Jiuyu Dragon Emperor used it, he was able to trap any 2 people in the Jiuyu Dragon Emperor's 9 Serenities Profound Palace. Unless those 2 people worked together, there was no way they could escape the 9 Serenities Profound Palace. But now, countless years later, the 9 Serenities Profound Palace has become a great place for Shunwu World's combatants to explore. Of course, Long Yu wouldn't tell anyone else about these secrets. Otherwise, wouldn't he be exposing the unusual relationship between him and the Jiuyu Dragon Emperor? The person he chose as his life and death contract was Shi Yingwu. It wasn't that he didn't trust others, but rather that he had a lot of things to do in the 9 Serenities Profound Palace. His best partner was the Death Envoy's disciple, Shi Yingwu. The others, including Qin Yashuang, Shu Chan, Yi Ziwei, and Yu Hanxin, were all unsuitable. In the 10,000 layers of space, Long Yu met up with everyone and quickly found out everyone's choice. Only in pairs could they enter the 9 Serenities Profound Palace, so everyone had to form a partner, and the partner had to be someone they completely trusted. Otherwise, if they entered the 9 Serenities Profound Palace to explore, it was very likely that they would be trapped inside forever. Qin Yashuang, you've always been with Zi Su since you were young, so there shouldn't be any problems with this life and death contract. Long Yu looked at Qin Yashuang and Zi Su, who were ready, and said with a smile, "Now that Zi Su and I have both stepped into the early stage Emperor realm, we should be able to try to enter the 2nd Serenities Palace." It's said that in order to enter the 2nd Serenities Palace, one must at least have the strength of an Emperor realm. The things inside are much better than the 1st Serenities Palace. Qin Yashuang also said with a smile. Of course, Long Yu knew about this. The 9 Serenities Profound Palace was divided into 9 floors, from the 1st Serenities Palace to the 9th Serenities Palace. The 1st Serenities Palace was suitable for King Realm Martial Cultivators. The 2nd Serenities Palace was suitable for Emperor Realm Martial Cultivators, and the 3rd Serenities Palace was more suitable for Emperor Realm experts. From the Death Envoy, Long Yu found out that before stepping into the ruler's secret realm, martial cultivators had to stay in the Emperor Realm for a long period of time. However, during this period, there was a difference in strength. This was why the five emperors were above the other emperor realm experts of the Shenwu world. After the late emperor realm was the one-star emperor realm. After the one-star emperor realm was the two-star emperor realm, and so on. In total, there were 7 levels. At the emperor realm, one's main cultivation method was to condense innate abilities. From innate abilities to the king path, to the emperor path, to the emperor path, and finally to the emperor path. Reaching the emperor path with one ability was the one-star emperor realm. Reaching the emperor path with 2 abilities was the two-star emperor realm, and so on. Only by reaching the emperor path with all 7 innate abilities could one reach the threshold of the ruler's secret realm. Without a doubt, none of the emperor realm experts that Long Yu had come into contact with had reached the emperor realm. Even the Tianxiang emperor, a member of the Elder Council of the Alliance of 5 Emperors, had only managed to comprehend one of his innate abilities to the emperor path and was still a long way from reaching the emperor path. Long Yu also didn't know why the Death Envoy would tell him so many things before the start of the God Martial Emperor Convention. In the past, the Death Envoy had always been very stingy in telling him many things regarding cultivation, especially this kind of level that he was temporarily unable to reach. However, since the Death Envoy was willing to tell him, Long Yu was more than willing to listen. This would only benefit him, as it would allow him to understand more about the martial path. Furthermore, the Death Envoy also told Long Yu that the current 5 emperors of Shenwu world, including his master, the Red Emperor, were only at the level of a 2-star emperor. The leader of the 5 emperors, the Saint Emperor, might have already reached the level of a 3-star emperor. Therefore, in the 9 Serenities Palace, only those who had reached the level of a 1-star emperor were qualified to explore the 4th Serenities Palace. Only a 2-star emperor was qualified to explore the 5th Serenities Palace, and so on. Only those who had reached the level of a 6-star emperor were qualified to enter the 9th Serenities Palace. In the entire Shenwu world, the most that the Alliance of 5 Emperors had explored was the 8th Serenities Palace. Everyone thought that the 9th Serenities Palace was the deepest part of the 9 Serenities Palace, but Long Yu found out from the Death Envoy that the 9 Serenities Palace didn't only have these 9 floors. There was also a final floor called the Profound Palace. Long Yu's destination this time was this Profound Palace. No matter which floor of the 9 Serenities Palace it was, the things inside definitely couldn't compare to the Profound Palace. In fact, there were even some things that Long Yu didn't expect to be sealed inside the Profound Palace. The Death Envoy didn't say it clearly, but it must be something extraordinary, otherwise the Death Envoy wouldn't have told him to go to the Profound Palace no matter what. If anyone knew that Long Yu's destination this time was the Profound Palace that was even further behind the 9th Serenities Palace, they would probably laugh their heads off. But it was obvious that Long Yu wouldn't let anyone know his destination. In the deepest part of the 9 Serenities Palace, there might be something that could allow Long Yu to transform. How could Long Yu reveal this secret to anyone else? Besides Shi Yingwu, even Qin Yashuang, Shu Chan, Yuhan Xin, and the others didn't know about this. Once Long Yu entered the 9 Serenities Palace, he would move together with Shi Yingwu. As for the selection of the 5 emperors that was held in the front hall of the 9 Serenities Palace, Long Yu wasn't too interested. The positions of the 5 emperors hadn't changed for hundreds of years, and there probably wouldn't be any changes in this year's Conference of God and Martial Emperors. Of course, it was still useful for King Realm and Emperor Realm martial cultivators to observe the battle of the Emperor Realm. If Long Yu had time, he would also observe for a while in the front hall, but it couldn't be too long. After all, he had his own things to do. In the Heavenly Mandate manner, Qi Hua and Hua Mei were in a group, Feng Yusin and Lu Yuan were in a group, Man Xian and Yi Lun were in a group. In the Heavenly Mandate manner, it couldn't be easier to form a group to participate in the Conference of God and Martial Emperors because most people trusted each other 100%. There wouldn't be any trust crisis. In the Shura manner, the situation was similar. As Shu Chan had also stepped into the Emperor Realm, Shu Chan and Yu Shu were in a group. In addition, Dugu Yijian and Xing Wu were in a group, and Yu Qingsha and Sahanzan were in a group. Long Yu paid a little attention and didn't find anything special, so he asked about the groups of others, such as Yuhan Xin and Yi Wei. It was obvious that everyone was very concerned about the groups of these people, so it wasn't difficult to find out the information. On the Red Emperor's side, Yuhan Xin and Yuhan Xin were in a group. It was worth mentioning that Yuhan Xin had successfully broken through to the Emperor Realm in the past half a month and became an expert in the initial stage of the Emperor Realm. Her strength might have surpassed the current Long Yu. However, Long Yu wasn't worried about his trip to the Abyss Black Palace. After all, his understanding of the Abyss Black Palace was far better than anyone else. If he wanted to achieve his goal in the Abyss Black Palace, he didn't need too much strength. Eldest senior brother Xing Fa and second senior brother Dao Jingtian were naturally in the same group. The two of them could be said to have unlimited trust between them, to the point that even if Dao Jingtian stabbed Xing Fa right now, Xing Fa wouldn't think that Dao Jingtian had betrayed him. Other than that, Yu Linfeng and Nailan Jun, the two clowns, formed a group. Don't be fooled by the fact that the two often quarreled and scolded each other. In fact, the friendship between the two surpassed anyone else. If anyone dared to bully one of them, the other would immediately jump out to help. Then, Long Yu continued to inquire about the situation on the Lei Emperor's side, mainly about Yi Wei. After all, Yi Wei possessed a terrifying divine rank absolute beginning treasure. Long Yu paid more attention to her. Soon, he found out that Yi Wei formed a group with Lei Emperor's second direct disciple, Su Qiubai. Chapter 923. Long Yu had also inquired about the other direct disciples of Lei Emperor. The chief direct disciple Wu Long and the third direct disciple Ji Bai were in a group, while the sixth direct disciple Gu Yuntian and the ninth direct disciple Huang Zetian were in another group. Among them were the seventh and eighth direct disciples. It was said that they had a good relationship with Huang Zetian and had formed a team. They had even declared that if they met Long Yu in the Nine Serenities Black Palace, they would definitely teach him a lesson. The seventh direct disciple Zhong Jiyan and the eighth direct disciple Liu Feihong of Lei Emperor were both early Emperor Realm cultivators. Needless to say, their battle prowess was definitely on par with Shueiyue Swordmaster. Their power surged and enveloped everyone. The millions of people only saw a white light flash before their eyes. Then they changed their position and arrived in a pitch-black void that stretched as far as the eye could see. Everyone floated in the void, a dense group of people, each staring in front of them in shock. They had arrived at the Nine Serenities Palace. Amongst the over 1 million people this time, it was the first time for more than half of them to come to the Ninth Hell Profound Palace. And as soon as they appeared, they were shocked by the Ninth Hell Profound Palace. In a boundless expanse of space, an incomparably awe-inspiring palace silently floated there. And outside the palace was an enormous stone tablet that was a few tens of thousands of meters tall. It stretched across the entire space, and on it were two large ancient words, Ninth Hell. The palace behind the huge stone tablet was like a hell, with a ferocious door facing the endless dark void. Just the open door alone was enough to traverse the entire void. Everyone in front of this palace was as small as an ant, not even comparable to an ant. Such a huge Nine Serenities Palace, but it was only evolved from a single innate ability of Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. It seems that my 7 innate abilities are still far from it. Long Yu couldn't help but think as he looked at the Nine Serenities Palace. If his cultivation could reach the level of the Dragon Emperor of the Nine Nether, then he would have 7 similar forbidden grounds in his mini-world. The Hand of the Nine Nether, the Siphon Totem, the Coiling Dragon of the Nine Nether, and so on. Every connate mystique would be a terrifying existence. However, the current Long Yu definitely couldn't reach that level, and the gap was extremely large. After all, Long Yu didn't even know what realm Jiuyo Dragon Emperor was at, let alone reach the cultivation of the previous Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. This is the Nine Serenities Palace. Since everyone is here, you only have one chance to leave. That is to wait for the martial god gathering to end in a month. The Saint Emperor floated in front of everyone, raised his hand, and spoke in a clear voice. If you miss the chance in a month, you'll have to think of a way to return to Shunwu World. Of course, you probably won't be able to think of a way, so you'll be trapped here until you die. Long Yu was well aware of this, because the outer layer of the Nine Serenities Palace was enveloped in a thick layer of Nine Serenities godly characters. Not to mention an Emperor Road secret realm cultivator. Even someone at the level of the 7-star Emperor would die if they were to enter this layer of thick Nine Serenities godly characters. Therefore, if one wanted to return to the Nine Serenities Palace, they could only go through the teleportation formation in the 10,000 layers. This made Long Yu a bit curious. Who was the one who created the 10,000 layers, or rather, the entire Sacred Tower? Long Yu had asked the Death Envoy about this, but unfortunately, even the Death Envoy didn't know the answer. Because when the Death Envoy was still alive, the Sacred Tower didn't exist in Shunwu World. The teleportation formation that connected the 10,000 layers to the Nine Serenities Palace could only be opened twice every 50 years, so the Shunwu Imperial Conference was set to happen once every 50 years. The strength of the spatial energy contained within the 10,000 layers was unquestionable. But even so, it would take 50 years to accumulate enough energy to open the gate to the Nine Serenities Palace twice. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was to break through the layer of Nine Serenities godly characters around the Nine Serenities Palace. From this, one could imagine just how powerful the Juyo Dragon Emperor was in the past. Then, with the Saint Emperor in the lead and the other 4 emperors behind, over 1 million Emperor Road secret realm cultivators slowly flew towards the entrance of the Nine Serenities Palace. Very quickly, everyone passed by the giant stone tablet that stood in the void of space. From a stone tablet, waves after waves of terrifying, eerie, and mysterious energy ripples were emitted, enough to make anyone's heart palpitate. Long Yu glanced at the 5 emperors flying at the front. Even the 5 emperors and the strongest Saint Emperor did not look very good at this moment. They were obviously affected by the mysterious power of the stone tablet. On the other hand, perhaps because he had comprehended the Nine Serenities godly characters, Long Yu did not feel anything special at this moment. Instead, he felt that the stone tablet was rather familiar. Xiao Wu, what do you think of this stone tablet? Long Yu turned his head and asked Shi Yingwu in a low voice. Shi Yingwu's expression was not very good either. She shook her head and said, "It feels very oppressive. It's as if the stone tablet will fall down at any time and drag us into hell. Looks like it really is a problem with the Nine Serenities godly characters." Long Yu nodded and did not say anything more. Just what was this stone tablet? The Death Envoy did not tell Long Yu. In fact, before Long Yu came here, he did not even know of the existence of such a stone tablet. "I'm afraid there's something wrong with this stone tablet," Long Yu thought to himself. Firstly, this stone tablet belonged to the Juyo Dragon Emperor. Secondly, the Death Envoy did not tell Long Yu about it. Could it be that this stone tablet was obtained from somewhere else? Originally, this stone tablet was not at the entrance of the Nine Serenities Palace. One must know that Long Yu was very familiar with the internal situation of the entire Nine Serenities Palace. However, this stone tablet was the only thing that he could not figure out. Unexpected situations would naturally attract Long Yu's attention and make him keep it in his heart. In the past, this habit of Long Yu had saved his life many times. Hopefully, this time would be no exception. Following the 5 emperors, everyone quickly passed by the giant stone tablet with the 2 words Nine Serenities carved on it. Then, they gradually approached the pitch-black entrance of the giant palace. Next, all the parties that have signed a life and death contract will hold hands and come here. Looking at the time, the Nine Serenities Palace should be opening soon, the Sage Emperor said to everyone. Then, he took the hand of a female elder from the alliance of 5 emperors and stood above the pitch-black entrance of the giant palace. Immediately after, the Red Emperor and the others did the same. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu looked at each other and nodded. Then, they held hands and flew above the pitch-black entrance of the palace. This giant palace was really too big. Even if millions of people gathered together, it was still not as big as the two pitch-black doors of the palace. During the queue, many people raised questions. Hasn't the Nine Serenities Palace already opened? What will we encounter if we fly through such a huge door? Isn't it the front hall of the Nine Serenities Palace where the Divine Martial Emperor Conference is held? Then, some people who had been here before laughed at them. What do you know? That door below is actually just for show. The real entrance to the Nine Serenity Profound Palace only appears once every 50 years. In a while, as long as someone holds hands here, they will be directly transported in, and they will also establish a life and death contract. As for those who enter from the door below, I've never heard of anyone coming out after entering. In this way, many martial cultivators who came to the Nine Serenities Palace for the first time were even more in awe of this palace. Every time the Divine Martial Emperor Conference opened, such a scene would appear, causing the Nine Serenities Palace to become even more mysterious in everyone's eyes. Long Yu and Sunset Dance held hands as they stood amidst the crowd, looking rather relaxed. It could be said that out of everyone present, the two of them were definitely the least nervous, because only the two of them knew exactly what was going on with the Nine Serenities Palace. Ever since the start of the Martial God Convention, a total of thousands of years had passed. The majestic Nine Nether Profound Palace had never welcomed someone like Long Yu, who actually came with the intention of clearing the entire Nine Nether Profound Palace. In the crowd, Long Yu saw many old friends, such as the Crown Prince of the Shenluo Empire, Emperor Yundun, Emperor Tianqin, etc. However, Long Yu didn't pay much attention to these people. His current level had completely surpassed these people. All he needed to do was to return to the North Snow Empire with Yuhanxin and expand the territory of the North Snow Empire after the Conference of Martial Gods and annex the surrounding countries. While waiting for the Divine Martial Emperor Conference, there were many people who wanted to visit Long Yu, such as Emperor Tianqin, Emperor Yundun, etc. Obviously, they wanted to find a way out for themselves. However, Long Yu didn't have time to see them, nor did he have time to listen to their nonsense. Chapter 924. In the incomparably silent pitch-black void, over 1 million people were waiting together, waiting for the opening of the Netherworld Profound Palace that happened once every 50 years. As it turned out, the 5 Emperors' grasp of time was very accurate. Exactly 6 hours after everyone arrived, a pitch-black light surged out from the main entrance of the Netherworld Profound Palace, instantly enveloping everyone within it. Furthermore, a black fog condensed on the hands of every 2 people who were holding hands. This black fog gave everyone an incomparably mysterious feeling. When this black fog dissipated, a strange feeling arose in everyone's heart. For example, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu could clearly feel that their lives had already been linked with each other's. No matter which of them died, the other would also die unconditionally. This was the so-called life and death contract. Every martial cultivator who wanted to enter the Netherworld Profound Palace had to sign a life and death contract like this. There were also a small number of martial cultivators who did not believe it and did not hold hands with their collaborators, causing the black fog to not appear on their bodies. A moment later, the figures of all the martial cultivators who had held hands flickered and disappeared almost at the same time. There were only a few martial cultivators who did not hold hands, but there were still thousands of them. At this moment, all of them were left outside the Netherworld Profound Palace. They looked at each other, then at the pitch-black doors of the Netherworld Profound Palace below, and were instantly dumbfounded. There is only one way to enter the Netherworld Profound Palace. They had missed this opportunity, so there was no chance of entering at all. These thousands of people instantly regretted it. Some of them wanted to test what would happen if they did not hold hands. Some of them held hands for a while and then let go. Just as they let go, the teleportation power of the Netherworld Profound Palace appeared. In the center of a seemingly boundless palace, over 1 million martial cultivators from the Emperor Path's secret realm from the Divine Battle World were suddenly transported by a black fog, and all of them appeared in this palace. The overall environment of the palace was somewhat dark, but there was a faint dim light flickering above the palace, allowing everyone to clearly see the overall appearance of the palace. The entire palace was squarish, but no one could see where the end of the palace was. They could only see the ceiling that was like the sky. It was made of black stone and emitted a dim light. The ground was also made of the same kind of black stone, and right now, over 1 million people from Shenwu World were stuck between two black stones of unknown size. This was the front hall of Nine Serenity's profound palace. The Divine Martial Emperor Conference would also be held here. As the 5 emperors raised their hands at the front, rows of light screens rose into the air in the palace. They formed a battle zone between the two black stones in the sky and the earth. These battle areas were used to host the Shenwu Imperial Convention. Those who wanted to compete for the position of the 5 emperors could participate in the battle. According to a series of rules, they would finally fight against the 5 emperors. If they defeated one of the 5 emperors, they might become the new 5 emperors. Long Yu wasn't very interested in this. After all, the battle of the 5 emperors would have to wait until the end. He definitely wouldn't stay to watch the battles of the other emperors. After entering this palace, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu looked at each other, nodded at each other, then leapt towards a certain direction and quickly disappeared. Their current destination was the first Nether Palace. The entrance was at the end of this hall, and it was a total of 10,000 li away from the center of the hall. As Long Yu and Shi Yingwu moved, many other people also moved. The direction they were heading towards was the direction that Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were running towards. After all, if they wanted to go to the first Nether Palace, they had to go in this direction. Many King Realm and Emperor Realm martial cultivators participated in the Shenwu Imperial Convention not to watch the competition for the position of the 5 emperors, but to explore the first Nether Palace and the second Nether Palace, hoping to find some good treasures. If they wanted to find good things, of course, the earlier they set off. Otherwise, wouldn't all the treasures that they had accumulated for 50 years be taken away by others? Even some ordinary Emperor Realm martial cultivators who didn't have any interest in the position of the 5 emperors ran towards the first Nether Palace without hesitation. Of course, their goal was not the first Nether Palace, but the third Nether Palace. In the blink of an eye, countless people rose from the boundless ground of the black stones and flew towards the end between the two black stones. More than half of the millions of people had left in an instant. In this regard, of course, the 5 emperors had expected this. However, the 5 emperors wouldn't leave so quickly. Their duty was to host the Shenwu Imperial Convention and select the cultivators who were qualified to challenge the 5 emperors. As the entire front hall of the 9 Nether Palace was very spacious, after the 600,000 to 700,000 people spread out, it didn't seem crowded. Even Long Yu and Shi Yingwu couldn't see anyone else. However, trouble still came knocking on their door very quickly, because the place where everyone was now was a place without any rules or restrictions. Even if someone killed someone here, no one would punish the killer. Therefore, once they left the site of the 5 emperors, some people began to act wildly. 2 late Emperor Realm elders from the Tai Wu Empire flew towards Long Yu and Shi Yingwu at high speed. They attacked from both sides, as if they wanted to capture the two alive. Xiao Wu, let's go. Long Yu pulled Shi Yingwu up. With just a thought, the nether void dragon blade in his hand directly teleported them through the void. In the blink of an eye, they were 100 miles away. Teleporting 100 miles in an instant was difficult even for Emperor Realm experts who were proficient in spatial divine runes, unless they had a spatial teleportation weapon similar to the Qinquan painting. Of course, the powerful elders from the Tai Wu Empire naturally had a way to get their hands on such a spatial teleportation weapon. As soon as they saw Long Yu teleport away, the 2 late-stage martial Emperor Realm elders from the Tai Wu Empire took out a roulette-like battle weapon from their robes. Dense spatial divine runes gushed out from the roulette battle weapon and wrapped around the 2 elders. In the next moment, they were teleported to the place Long Yu had teleported to. Kill. As soon as the 2 appeared, they saw the panic-stricken Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. Then, all kinds of divine runes and divine abilities descended, instantly smashing the two into pieces. But this time, the two knew that they had been tricked. The two figures in front of them were only the shadows of Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, not their real bodies. As for Long Yu and Shi Yangwu's real bodies, they had already teleported over 1,000 miles away. As for how they managed to hide from the two late Emperor Realm experts, it was not a problem for Long Yu. After all, he had mastered the balance control secret law and had cultivated it to the 5th level. Even the two late Emperor Realm elders from the Taiwu Empire only had a detection range of 2,000 miles. But within 2,000 miles, they could not find any trace of Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. Under the influence of balance control, it was as if Long Yu had disappeared from everyone's perception. Unless they had some special weapons, or spent some time to deduce him in Sunset Dance, it was as if he had disappeared from everyone's perception. Even a peak Emperor Realm cultivator would need at least half an hour to deduce where Long Yu was. And by the time they did, Long Yu had already be gone, of course. There were many combatants in the Shenwu world, and there were many who had all kinds of techniques. For example, when Long Yu and Shi Yingwu teleported over 3,000 miles, Long Yu suddenly found that he and Shi Yingwu had directly jumped into a spatial barrier, unable to pass through it. This was a trap. Someone had used an even more powerful spatial divine rune technique to deduce that Long Yu would pass through here and set up an ambush here. When they fell into the spatial trap, a male and female early-stage Emperor cultivator appeared in front of Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. I didn't think it would be our strongest Emperor Realm champion who fell into our trap. The female was extremely seductive and had a butterfly tattoo on her face. She looked at Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, who had fallen into the trap, and was a bit surprised, but her face was filled with joy. "Old dog, it looks like we've struck gold." The sloppy man in black, who was referred to as Old Dog, chuckled. "We've struck gold. Aside from the two of us, no one else could have arrived here so quickly. If that's the case, then let's finish this quickly and eat these two brats." It's Tengu and Gue Dai. It's said that these two have done many evil deeds in the past. Who would have thought that martial monarch Shenwu would come here to rob? Shi Yingwu frowned slightly when she saw the man and woman. Although Shi Yingwu was strong and had won first place in the strongest Emperor Realm, she was still a King Realm cultivator. She hadn't broken through to Emperor Realm yet. Compared to Long Yu, Sunset Dancer's strength was much weaker. She couldn't help but feel nervous when she saw Tengu and Ghost Butterfly, who were both early-stage Soul Emperors. But Long Yu didn't think so. If he were to go all out, even a mid-stage Emperor wouldn't be able to do anything to him, much less two early-stage Emperors. "Since you've come to me, don't blame me for being impolite." The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled. Although he was trapped by the spatial ceiling formation, he wasn't worried at all. "I'll use you two to test out my new martial technique, Spatial Rending Slash." In the next moment, countless pitch-black blades shot out of Long Yu's body and spread out in all directions. This was his 7th Khanate combat art, Path of the 9 Underworlds, using pitch-black blades to pierce through space. This was an advanced combat art of the 7th level. Paired with Long Yu's 10th level synergy with the Shadow Rune and Balanced Mastery, Long Yu was able to see the weakness of the spatial ceiling formation. In the blink of an eye, the trap was destroyed by Long Yu. In the next moment, a stream of light blue water in Long Yu's hand turned into a sharp blade that disappeared in a flash. Chapter 925. Long Yu raised his hand and unleashed the void-rending slash, causing the early-stage Soul Emperor Tengu's face to turn extremely ugly. He'd been wearing a wretched smile on his face, hoping to kill Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, who were trapped in his spatial ceiling spell formation. But then he realized that Long Yu had used some strange technique to break through his spatial ceiling spell formation. He was just about to make a move to suppress Long Yu once again, but before he could even circulate the energy in his body, he felt as if a sharp blade had appeared in his body, stirring up all the meridians, bones, and dantian in his body. The first slash severed dozens of his meridians. The second slash shattered all of his ribs. With the third slash, his dantian was directly smashed into pieces by the mysterious blade that had appeared. The man's name was Tengu, and he'd robbed many other martial cultivators in the past, but he'd never encountered anything like this. Never in his wildest dreams could he have guessed that Long Yu would be able to break through his trap and kill him in an instant. Tengu wasn't dead, but he was seriously injured. Most importantly, his dantian had been damaged, and his cultivation base had been destroyed. His inner world had been completely destroyed. It was too late for Tengu to regret his actions. Ghost Butterfly didn't know what was going on, but when she saw the unsightly expression on Tengu's face and the blood oozing out of the corner of his mouth, she knew the situation wasn't looking good. Die! Ghost Butterfly didn't beg for mercy. Instead, she used her illusory technique to envelop Long Yu. A large swarm of black butterflies fluttered in the air, surrounding Long Yu and Sunset Dance. However, Long Yu had cultivated the balance control secret art, so he was able to see through this illusion array with a single glance. Without hesitation, he unleashed Space Splitting Strike once more. Long Yu had acquired the Duankong Sacred Spring, an unbounded battle weapon that he had grown very familiar with. Therefore, he could easily teleport it out of Tengu's body and into Ghost Butterfly's. Spatial Rending Strike. Even though Long Yu has only trained it to the beginner level, but to use it against Shun Wu World's martial cultivators who don't pay much attention to body training, it's practically unstoppable. Ghost Butterfly only had time to cast an illusion technique before his cultivation was directly crippled by Sky Splitting Slash. He fell to the ground with Heavenly Hound. The man and woman had committed all sorts of evil deeds, and they had never expected to end up like this. Let's go. Long Yu raised his hand, and a light blue stream of water appeared in his palm and wrapped around his wrist. A look of joy could be seen in Long Yu's eyes. Without a doubt, the void-rending strike had displayed its power in battle. It could instantly kill an ordinary early-stage Great Emperor martial cultivator. With this, he could even cripple a mid-stage Great Emperor martial cultivator. Of course, the body of a mid-stage Great Emperor martial cultivator was several times stronger than that of an early-stage Great Emperor martial cultivator. Even so, they wouldn't be able to completely withstand the destructive power of the void-rending strike. No matter what, they would still be injured. The only difference was the degree of injury. If Long Yu could cultivate the spatial severing slash to an even higher level, its destructive power would be even greater and its killing power would be even stronger. However, even if it was Long Yu, he would not be able to cultivate the martial technique to a higher level within a short period of time. The illusion world of the Five Emperors was a good place to cultivate, but it was a pity that each person could only enter it once. If Long Yu wanted to cultivate the void-rending strike to a higher level, it wouldn't be easy. This was the first danger that Long Yu had encountered since entering the Nine Serenities' profound palace, but it was so easily dealt with. Long Yu caught up to Tengu and Gui Dai and killed them. Then, he burned their corpses and took everything they had for himself. The cultivation resources on them added up to tens of millions of Shinbi. They could be said to be extremely wealthy among ordinary martial cultivators. Long Yu wouldn't let these things go to waste. Long Yu wouldn't let them go to waste. Then, he brought Shi Yingwu and continued towards the first Nether Palace. With the Nether Dragon Blade's limitless void rending ability, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were very likely to be among the first batch of martial cultivators to enter the first Nether Palace. No matter which Nether Palace it was, the first to enter would obviously find a lot of treasures. But of course, they would also encounter a lot of danger. Because in these Nether Palaces, after 50 years of accumulation, some special life forms would be born. These life forms would instinctively attack other life forms that appeared around them. Moreover, they were quite strong. In the first Nether Palace, life forms on the level of the King Realm would be born. In the second Nether Palace, because the Netherworld Chi was even denser, life forms on the level of the Emperor Realm would be born. These life forms were basically in the shape of a black fog. However, they were existences with their own consciousness. It wasn't easy to defeat them. This was also why the King Realm Martial Cultivators couldn't explore the second Nether Palace. Because if they encountered the black fog life forms on the level of the Emperor Realm, the King Realm Martial Cultivators would most likely die. And in the Nether Palace of the Nine Nether Palace, the most common heavenly treasures were the pure spiritual chi of heaven and earth transformed by the black fog life forms. As long as one killed the black fog life forms, they would be able to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and use it to raise their martial realm. If one had enough strength, the speed at which one killed the black fog life forms would definitely be faster than consuming pills in the outside world. Moreover, one could eliminate the black fog life forms without a limit, allowing one to obtain limitless improvement. Other than the spiritual chi of heaven and earth contained within the black fog life forms, there were also some other shadowy attribute medicinal herbs that grew along the corridors of the Nether Palace. These medicinal herbs were all excellent materials for refining pills. Adding a little of these medicinal herbs would allow one to refine a supreme grade pill. It was impossible to obtain them in the outside world. Therefore, these medicinal herbs could be said to be priceless. No matter who collected them, they would be able to sell them for an extremely high price. Long Yu didn't care much about these medicinal herbs. As for killing the black fog life forms, he would only kill them in the first 3 floors of the Nether Palace. The most important goal was to find some special condensed crystals in every floor of the Nether Palace. According to the Death Envoy, these crystals were condensed from the dense 9 Nether divine characters in the 9 Nether Palace. Only by obtaining enough 9 Nether crystals would one be able to open the profound palace after the 9th Nether Palace and obtain the ultimate treasure in the deepest part of the 9 Nether Palace. The distance of 10,000 kilometers was crossed very quickly by Long Yu using void traversal. Just 2 hours after he stepped into the 9 Nether Palace, Long Yu had already arrived at the end of the hall. In front of him, between the enormous black stones, there was a pitch-black spatial vortex. From the spatial vortex, one could directly be transported to the first Nether Palace. The spatial vortex wasn't very big. Compared to the entire hall of the 9 Nether Palace, it could even be said to be extremely small. Only one person could step into it at a time, and it could only be transported once every breath. This also meant that the martial cultivator who arrived here first definitely had a great advantage. If one was late, just passing through the spatial vortex would take a very long time to reach the first Nether Palace. There were even many people who would start fighting in front of the spatial vortex, just to enter the first Nether Palace in advance. When Long Yu and Shi Yingwu arrived, there was clearly no one near the spatial vortex. Therefore, the two of them easily stepped into it, and with a flash, they were transported to the first Nether Palace. After the two of them left, and even before the two of them arrived, other people had already arrived. After all, although Long Yu's void traversal was extremely fast, other people with spatial attribute combat weapons wouldn't be too slow either. Just as Long Yu and Shi Yingwu disappeared into the spatial vortex, 2 handsome young men appeared at the entrance of the spatial vortex almost at the same time. Both of them were early-stage martial emperors. They were the 2 direct disciples of Lei Emperor, the 7th direct disciple, Zhong Jian, and the 8th direct disciple, Lu Feihong. Both of them possessed terrifying strength, and both possessed a spatial attribute combat weapon. Unexpectedly, they were only a moment slower than Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. Of course, on the way, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were delayed by Tengu and Ghost Butterfly. Otherwise, they would have arrived much faster. We didn't see anyone else along the way. As for Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, they shouldn't be here yet. We should enter as soon as possible and set up an ambush. When Long Yu and Shi Yingwu arrive at the first Nether Palace, we will immediately attack them. The 7th direct disciple of Lei Emperor, Zhong Jian, said with a sinister expression. He had a very good relationship with Huang Zetian. In the competition between the strongest Emperor Realm experts, Long Yu had seriously injured Huang Zetian. This undoubtedly made Zhong Jian want to avenge Huang Zetian. You're thinking too much. On the other side, the eighth direct disciple, Lu Feihong, who had a calm expression, shook his head and said, I've been deducing the movements of Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. Just now, the difficulty of the deduction increased by more than 10 times. They must have moved to another space. Most likely, they just passed through this space vortex and stepped into the first Nether Palace. Lu Feihong was very adept at using the power of deduction. Although it would take him a long time to deduce the exact location of Long Yu, it didn't mean that he couldn't deduce Long Yu's movements. With the power of deduction, it would be easier to deduce existences in the same layer of space. If the target of the deduction was in another space, the difficulty of the deduction would increase greatly. Therefore, Lu Feihong relied on this point to determine that Long Yu and Sunset Dance had already stepped into the first palace. They're fast. Let's go. We'll ignore them when we reach the first Nether Palace. We'll go straight to the second Nether Palace, as long as we reach the second Nether Palace faster than them. Zhong Jian said, Why are we in such a hurry? We can play with them. According to that brat's personality, he definitely won't be satisfied with only moving in the first 2 layers. He'll probably go to the third Nether Palace. Chapter 926. Although Long Yu did not know who was watching him, he was certain that someone was definitely watching him and wanted to find trouble with him. Regarding this, Long Yu didn't care too much, because as long as his speed was fast enough and he was 1 level ahead of others, even Emperor Realm powerhouses wouldn't be able to deduce his whereabouts. Now, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu appeared at the entrance of the first palace. According to the Death Envoy, the first palace only had 1 main palace, and around the main palace were 10,000 side palaces. When entering the first palace from the front hall, martial cultivators would randomly appear in one of the side palaces, and then head towards the main palace in the center to find a space whirlpool that led to the second palace. Every side palace looked exactly the same, so for ordinary people, it was quite difficult to find the main palace of the first palace, and they could only rely on their luck to find it. But Long Yu and Shi Yingwu didn't need to. The two had the secret technique passed down by the Death Envoy, so they could easily sense the location of the 9 nether crystal. The first palace would condense a 9 nether crystal every 50 years, and it was located in the main palace. As long as they reached the main palace first, they could obtain the 9 nether crystal and use it to open the final profound palace. In order to open the final profound palace, a total of 45 9 nether crystals were needed, and from the first palace to the 9th palace, there were exactly 45 9 nether crystals, so they couldn't miss a single one. After Long Yu arrived at the first palace, he looked around and saw that he was surrounded by walls made of black stones. Up, down, down, left, and right were all black walls. The light in the secondary hall was dim, and only the black stone walls emitted a dim light, making people feel that it was extremely strange. The side palace wasn't big, but it was still more than 20 miles wide. Although one could see the end with a glance, if one wanted to walk out of the side palace without relying on spatial divine runes, it would still take a long time. And starting from the first palace, the spatial divine runes here would be in a completely blocked state. Here, it would be impossible to use any spatial divine runes. Of course, this also included Long Yu, who had just comprehended 50% of the space-shattering divine rune. However, this did not affect Long Yu much. In any case, his main purpose in coming here was not to fight, so it did not matter if his methods were restricted. Is that the black fog life form? Shi Yingwu suddenly said in a soft voice. Then, she dashed forward. Divine runes of death erupted and condensed into a pitch-black scythe. The scythe slashed at a floating black mist and cut it in half. However, the black fog life form did not die because of this. Of course, both Shi Yingwu and Long Yu were prepared for this. After all, the black fog life forms were something that everyone was likely to encounter during the Shenwu Imperial Convention, so there was naturally a lot of information about them. Looks like the only way is to completely annihilate them and absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in their bodies. Shi Yingwu smiled, and the pitch-black scythe instantly exploded. The power of the divine runes of death spread in all directions and directly annihilated the black fog life form. Then, a small amount of pure spiritual chi of heaven and earth condensed where the black fog life form was and was absorbed by Shi Yingwu with a raise of her hand. Her pretty face showed a touch of surprise. Just absorbing the pure spiritual chi of this black fog life form, which is equivalent to the king realm, is equivalent to taking an ancient lower-grade elixir. Shi Yingwu was really shocked. Although she had expected to gain a lot of spiritual chi from killing the black fog life form, she did not expect it to be to this extent. One must know that this was the weakest black fog life form. It seems that if I kill the Emperor Realm, or even the Emperor Realm black fog life form, I can absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth equivalent to an ancient upper grade or even an archean elixir. Long Yu's eyes also lit up. Although he and Shi Yingwu had a lot of cultivation resources on them right now, they were all useless to them because they had already taken at least 3 of the elixirs they could take. Taking more of the same elixirs wouldn't have much of an effect, but right now, these black fog life forms were obviously very effective in increasing their martial realm. In Shunwu world, there were also things that could achieve this effect, and that was the unique beast crystals. But even if one destroyed a beast nest, they would only be able to obtain no more than 5 unique beast crystals, so it was easy to imagine how precious they were. And in this 9 Serenity Palace, just the first Serenity Palace alone had a rough estimate of several 100,000 black fog life forms. Because the first Serenity Palace had a total of 10,000 sub-palaces, and in this sub-palace in front of Long Yu, there were at least 20 black fog life forms. After sensing his and Shi Yongwu's arrival, they all floated towards them. The black fog life forms weren't fast, but they weren't slow either. Most importantly, they were very hard to detect, so Long Yu and Shi Yingwu had to rely on balance control to clearly sense the presence of the black fog life forms around them. As the personal disciple of the Death Envoy, Shi Yingwu naturally also cultivated the balance control secret technique, but she didn't have as much spiritual chi of heaven and earth as Long Yu did, so she had only just reached the first stage. Even so, her perception of the power around her was more than 10 times that of a normal martial cultivator. Be careful, there's one above your head. Let's quickly kill it and go to the next floor. Killing the black fog life forms on this floor is a complete waste of time, and there might be others coming to disturb us. But once we get to the next floor, there won't be a lot of people, so we can kill for a while longer and try to break through a realm first, Long Yu told Shi Yingwu. Shi Yingwu nodded. The death god's scythe, thaumaturgy, reappeared, directly slicing the black fog life form into pieces, then absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. She then followed Long Yu and flew towards the direction of the 9 Serenity Crystal that the secret technique sensed. On the way, unless the black fog life forms were directly in front of them, the 2 of them didn't bother to pay attention to them. As for the precious herbs and ores they saw along the way, Long Yu reluctantly put them away. It didn't take much time to collect these things anyway, and their value wasn't low, so Long Yu did it as a matter of convenience. This was the biggest difference between a small world and an inner world. In the 9 Serenity Palace, so many heavenly treasures would appear every 50 years, and even existences like the black fog life forms could be condensed. But in the inner world, it was impossible for such a situation to occur no matter what. The wreckage of the sufferer's small world that Long Yu had gone to had already been completely destroyed, so it didn't have the ability to regenerate. It was also absolutely dead inside. If another few thousand or 10,000 years passed, perhaps the wreckage of the sufferer's small world would completely collapse and disappear from this world. In the first Nether Palace, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu flew towards the central main palace as fast as they could. Even so, they had to pass through at least 100 subsidiary palaces before they could reach the main palace. This was because when everyone was transported to the first Nether Palace, they would be in the outermost subsidiary palaces. Every subsidiary palace had a radius of more than 20 kilometers. At least 100 subsidiary palaces added up to more than 1,000 kilometers. If they could use spatial divine runes, this distance wouldn't be much. But now, the entire Nether Palace had spatial divine runes sealed, so martial cultivators could only fly continuously. In addition, there were black fog life forms obstructing them on the way, so it was more difficult to reach the next level. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were still fine. At least they knew where they were heading. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't know where the main palace was. It would take at least 2 days to find the main palace. Even if their luck was extremely good, it would take more than half a day to find the main palace. But now, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu only needed 6 hours to find the main palace. Along the way, it didn't take the initiative to find the black fog life forms to kill, so their speed was even faster. There was a total of more than 2,000 kilometers in a straight line. But due to the twists and turns of the passageways, the two traveled a total of 3,000 kilometers in 6 hours. During this time, they killed at least 500 black fog life forms. Most of them were killed by Shi Yingwu. When Shi Yingwu killed 300 black fog life forms, her aura finally changed. She actually broke through at this time. Originally, she came to participate in the Divine Martial Emperor Conference as the strongest King Realm expert. In the past half a month, she didn't break through to the Emperor Realm and was still in the late King Realm. But she didn't expect that in less than 6 hours after stepping into the first Nether Palace, she killed enough black fog life forms and officially stepped into the Emperor Realm. When Shi Yingwu broke through, Long Yu sensed the situation inside his body. He found that his inner world had expanded to more than 9 million kilometers. As long as his inner world could expand to 10 million kilometers, the power of his heart would be able to refine his body again, allowing him to step into the late Emperor Realm. Long Yu was looking forward to this. Although it wasn't easy to break through from the late Emperor Realm to the Emperor Realm, but if he reached the late Emperor Realm first, Long Yu's basic strength would increase by at least 3 times, greatly increasing his combat strength. Therefore, in the following journey, Shi Yingwu didn't do anything. When they encountered the black fog life forms, Long Yu would personally take care of them, in order to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual qi contained in them and attempt to break through. When Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were about to reach the main palace of the first Nether Palace, Long Yu's inner world finally expanded to 10 million kilometers, causing his entire temperament to change greatly. His basic strength increased further, finally stepping into the late Emperor Realm, and his combat strength increased by 3 times. If Long Yu, who had stepped into the late Emperor Realm, wanted to deal with Yi Ziwei, it would be even easier than before. Chapter 9:27. Those who had arrived earlier than Long Yu and Shi Yingwu had probably relied on luck. However, Long Yu didn't want to take the risk before he was certain of the other party's cultivation. After all, although Long Yu had stepped into the late Emperor Realm, he still wasn't strong enough to fight against a peak Emperor Realm or even an Emperor Realm martial cultivator. As soon as Long Yu sensed that there were people in front of him, he immediately activated balance control to hide himself and Shi Yingwu so that they wouldn't be discovered. The two of them moved forward and soon discovered that there were 2 groups of martial cultivators in the main hall of the first palace. There were 4 people in total, and all of them were late Emperor Realm martial cultivators. Among them, 2 middle-aged men were human martial cultivators, while the other 2 young men were Yao cultivators. The 2 sides were facing each other near the 9 Serenities crystal in the center of the main hall, and seemed to be discussing something. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu quietly approached. The 4 people didn't notice them at all. Soon, the 2 of them heard that the 4 people were discussing the ownership of the 9 Serenities crystal in the center of the main hall. The crystal that 9 Nether had condensed was a rhombus-shaped black crystal. In addition to being able to open the final profound palace, absorbing the energy within could also allow a cultivator to fuse with their shadow attribute divine runes. It was a type of fusion treasure, so it was also useful to ordinary martial cultivators. These two middle-aged men are elders of the Taiwu Empire, one of the 6 sects and 10 countries. The 2 Yao cultivators are elders of another Yao cultivator sect of the 6 sects and 10 countries. It seems that they don't have a good relationship. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and transmitted to Shi Yingwu. Shi Yongwu's eyes lit up. You want to split them up and deal with them separately? First, join forces with the human martial cultivators and kill the 2 Yao cultivators? Your plan is generally correct, but there's one thing you're wrong about. The corner of Long Yu's mouth curved slightly. I don't want to deal with the Yao cultivators first. I want to deal with the 2 human martial cultivators first. In next to no time, Long Yu had figured out the entire plan and was prepared to carry it out. To him, even if the plan failed, it wouldn't be life-threatening. But once it succeeded, he would be able to easily obtain the crystal condensed by the 9 hells and kill these 4 fellows before him. The 4 people from the Taiwu Empire and the Demon Cultivator sects were in a heated argument over the ownership of 9 underworlds condensed crystal. Suddenly, Long Yu's figure appeared at the side. Everyone, I didn't expect to meet you here. As soon as Long Yu appeared, his eyes were fixed on the 2 middle-aged men from the Grand Wu Empire. His eyes were filled with hatred. 2 senior demonic cultivators. The people of the Grand Wu Empire have always been cunning. Why don't we join forces and get rid of them? As for the condensed crystal in the middle, it's useless to me. You all know that I've long since fused with the shadow attribute, divine runes. When Long Yu appeared, Shi Yingwu was naturally by his side as well. As soon as these words came out, all 4 people in the field were shocked. No one doubted the truth of Long Yu's words, because everyone knew that there was a deep hatred between Long Yu and the Grand Wu Empire. Moreover, in the competition between the strongest martial emperors, the power he had displayed was definitely the power of the shadow attribute divine runes. The 2 young demonic cultivators looked at each other and saw a hint of cunning in each other's eyes. We're evenly matched with these 2 fellows from the Grand Wu Empire. That's why we wanted to settle this peacefully. Now that Long Yu has come, this kid's strength isn't bad. If we join forces with him, we'll definitely be able to kill these 2 fellows from the Grand Wu Empire. One of the young demonic cultivators used a special method to silently transmit his words to the other young demonic cultivator's ears. That's right. As for this Long Yu, although he's very strong, it's definitely impossible for him to deal with us together. Let's first kill the 2 from the Grand Wu Empire with him. Then we'll deal with this kid. That way, we'll be able to kill them all. The other young demonic cultivator conveyed this message. It could almost be said that the 2 young demonic cultivators and Long Yu had hit it off completely. They did not suspect Long Yu at all, nor were they worried that Long Yu would turn against them after killing the 2 from the Grand Wu Empire. This was because their strength was definitely enough to completely suppress Long Yu. Moreover, everyone knew that Long Yu and the people from the Grand Wu Empire had a grudge against each other. After all, they were existences in the late stage of the martial emperor realm. These 2 demonic cultivators from a demonic cultivator sect were still very strong. As long as Long Yu was holding them back, it would be a piece of cake for them to kill the 2 from the Grand Wu Empire. Kid, you're right. In that case, let's join forces to deal with the people from the Grand Wu Empire first. Later on, you'll have to give us the condensed crystal. As soon as one of the young demonic cultivators finished speaking, he immediately transformed into his original form, which turned out to be a green lynx. His figure flashed, and he activated the power of the fiery divine runes. A circle of flames rose around him and trapped the entire area. In a secluded palace where the divine runes of space could not be used, it was very difficult for ordinary people to escape after being trapped by the fiery divine runes. The only way out was to kill the person who had used the fiery divine runes. When the 2 from the Grand Wu Empire saw that Long Yu had joined forces with the 2 demonic cultivators, they immediately panicked. However, these 2 were not ordinary people. They had lived for 100 or 200 years, so how could they not have some tricks up their sleeves? Long Yu, the Grand Wu Empire has suffered a lot in your hands, but you haven't suffered any losses. Why do you have to fight with us like this? One of the middle-aged men said in a low voice, "Why don't we join forces and kill these two demonic cultivators? As for the condensed crystal, we'll give it to you." As soon as these words came out, the two demonic cultivators immediately frowned. Their strength was comparable to the two from the Grand Wu Empire. There was no doubt that as long as Long Yu was willing to help one side, that side would be able to tilt the scales in the direction of victory. However, to the two demonic cultivators' relief, Long Yu directly rejected the Grand Wu Empire's offer. The Grand Wu Empire's Grand Wu Abyss once threatened me and wanted to take me into the Grand Wu Empire. Later, they sent dozens of martial emperor powerhouses to encircle me. If it weren't for the fact that I, Long Yu, have some tricks up my sleeves, I would have fallen into your hands long ago. I don't even know if I'm still alive or dead. I'm sure my fate would have been extremely miserable, Long Yu said coldly. What else do I have to say to the Grand Wu Empire? As soon as he finished speaking, Long Yu opened his mouth and a dragon's breath of the nine underworlds shot towards one of the Grand Wu Empire's middle-aged men, exuding a terrifying aura of destruction. The two demonic cultivators did not hesitate for long when they saw Long Yu attack. One of them, a flaming mountain cat demonic cultivator, continuously unleashed his divine flame abilities. Although most of them were only 8th or 9th heaven advanced divine abilities and not Imperial Path divine abilities, due to the flaming mountain cat demonic cultivator's late-stage martial emperor cultivation base, the power displayed was extremely powerful. At the very least, it was a power that Long Yu could not face head-on for the time being. Long Yu paid some attention to this. He needed to understand the fighting style of these two demonic cultivators and come up with a way to restrain them. Otherwise, once the two from the Grand Wu Empire died, the next to die would be Long Yu. Although Long Yu had stepped into the late-stage martial emperor realm, there was still a considerable gap between him and a late-stage martial emperor realm expert. His basic strength alone was 20 to 30 times weaker than a late-stage martial emperor realm expert, which was very difficult to make up for with other factors. Unless he grasped the weaknesses of these two demonic cultivators and killed them with a surprise attack, it would be very difficult to kill them. It should be known that the physical strength of a demonic cultivator was generally stronger than that of a human martial cultivator. It was already difficult to kill them. Moreover, in the Serene Palace, all divine texts of the space attribute could not be used. Of course, Long Yu could not use the void-splitting slash. The other demonic cultivator mainly grasped the divine text of the Berserker attribute. It turned out to be a Berserk Bull demonic cultivator. After transforming into its true form, it kept rampaging around, forcing the two from the Grand Wu Empire to constantly dodge. If they were hit by this Berserk Bull, the bodies of the two from the Grand Wu Empire would definitely not be able to withstand it. At the very least, they would be severely injured. The two men from the extreme Wu Empire saw that the situation was getting out of hand, but they had no choice but to give up. Since the two demon cultivators were unable to kill them in such a short time, they might as well take this opportunity to kill Long Yu first. As long as they killed Long Yu, the two of them would definitely not be at a disadvantage against the two demonic cultivators. The two of them, one above and one below, flew swiftly towards Long Yu. One of them held a long staff in his hand. The long staff in his hand gave rise to a gust of wind, and shadows of the staff flew towards Long Yu. The other person held a longbow in his hand and constantly dodged the attacks of the demonic cultivators. At the same time, he suddenly shot 3 flowing light arrows at Long Yu. These 3 arrows were aimed at Long Yu's heart, dantian, and head. Moreover, these arrows could automatically track their targets. Even though Long Yu had changed his position, these 3 arrows still shot towards Long Yu. They were like maggots attached to bones, like a shadow, following the body, and their speed was extremely fast. Since I can't dodge them, I'll just have to take them head on. Long Yu tried to dodge twice and found that he could not avoid them. He made up his mind, and dozens of fallen dark stars quickly condensed and flew towards the weak points of the 3 arrows before exploding. Immediately afterward, Long Yu condensed the death chi wrapped around his body and surrounded the three arrows. After being weakened by the death chi, the power of the three arrows was reduced by half again. Finally, the barrier of death. The three arrows directly penetrated Long Yu's barrier of death and shot at Long Yu's hands and left leg respectively. However, the three arrows, which had been weakened by layers upon layers, did not cause any damage to Long Yu. On one hand, Yu Long's physique had been strengthened further after taking the dragon form ancient pill. On the other hand, the fallen Dark Star had blasted the arrow's weak points, and the death chi around him had weakened their attack by half, greatly reducing the power of the three arrows. In the end, Long Yu actually withstood the direct attack of these three arrows. One had to know that these three arrows were the innate abilities of the Imperial late-stage Martial Emperor Realm Elder from the Taiwu Empire. They were already high-level martial emperors. How is this possible? The middle-aged Imperial Elder from the Taiwu Empire who shot the arrows saw this, and his expression changed drastically. He never thought that his three deadly arrows would have no effect on Long Yu. What kind of terrifying technique did Long Yu possess to be able to weaken his arrows to such an extent? Right at this moment, the Nine Nether aura emanated from Long Yu's body. Origin energy, Nine Nether deterrence. Chapter 928. The middle-aged man from the Taiwu Empire was stunned by Long Yu's Nine Nether source force. He would not be able to resist for at most a breath's time. The two beast cultivators seized the opportunity. The flaming mountain cat beast cultivator blocked the other middle-aged man, while the frenzied demon bull used its most powerful technique and directly charged towards the man who was stunned by Long Yu. There was almost no need for Long Yu to do anything. The frenzied demon bull's brute force was unquestionable. With just one charge, the middle-aged man was directly sent flying. His internal organs were completely shattered, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Then his eyes widened, and he gradually stopped breathing. 13th Elder. The other middle-aged man's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw this. Not only was the dead man on good terms with him, but more importantly, everyone had signed a life and death contract when they enter the Nine Nether Black Palace. If you live, I live. If you die, I die. However, the remaining middle-aged man didn't even have the time to react when a wave of the aura of Netherworld divine writing condensed from the surrounding space, and it instantly enveloped him. This was the life and death contract in effect. If one of them died, the other would definitely die. Under the rules of the life and death contract left behind by the Geo-Dragon Emperor, a mere martial cultivator at the Martial Emperor stage had no power to resist at all. This was the first time Long Yu had seen a life and death contract in effect. It turned out that a mass of 9 Nether divine characters condensed into a thick fog enveloped the person and then completely corroded him to death when dealing with Tengu and Ghost Butterfly previously. Although Long Yu had first crushed Tengu's internal organs, he did not die, so he could not see the effect of the life and death contract. Now, Long Yu finally understood the effect of the life and death contract. Even a late-stage martial emperor powerhouse, under the influence of the life and death contract, could not even withstand half a breath's time and was directly corroded and annihilated. However, there was no time for Long Yu to sigh. Because the two people from the Taiwu Empire had been dealt with, there were still 2 beast cultivators left. Long Yu did not think that these 2 guys would let him go in such a situation. In the next moment, before the 2 demon cultivators could react, Long Yu's quintessence energy, the 9 hell deterrence, was unleashed once more. His target was the frenzied demon bull. The frenzied demon bull had just killed an old rival of the Taiwu Empire and was feeling very pleased. However, the sudden 9 Nether deterrence stunned it on the spot. It wasn't that he wasn't vigilant. It was just that he didn't expect a mere Emperor Realm brat like Long Yu to dare attack him. You think too much, brat. The half-fighting demon cow was intimidated by Long Yu. However, in an instant, its entire body flashed with a golden light, and it recovered from its intimidated state. Its eyes stared at Long Yu, who was not far away, and its face was flushed red. Do you think that I, a dignified demon cow, would be intimidated by your inferior technique? The demonic ox clan originally had a very strong ability to resist attacks and physical strength. Even if they were shocked, their bodies would naturally send out a warning, waking them up from the state of shock. Brat, I wanted to give you a good way to die, but now it seems that there's no need for that. I'm going to grind your bones and scatter your ashes. On the other side, the flaming mountain cat beast cultivator also reacted and rushed straight towards Long Yu. However, Long Yu had already made arrangements in advance. 8 trigrams, heaven suppression. Long Yu just raised his hand, and 8 beams of light of different colors directly condensed from the field and blasted towards the flaming mountain cat beast cultivator, instantly binding his whole body. 8 trigrams heaven suppression was a first-grade god chain, the strongest technique among the god chains. Once this technique was used, even the late-stage Emperor Realm Flaming Mountain Cat will be trapped for at least 3 breaths of time. Unless he had some special method that defied the natural order, it would be impossible for him to escape. And 3 breaths of time was enough for Long Yu to deal with the Frenzy Demon Bull. Just as Long Yu activated the 8 trigrams heaven suppression, the Frenzy Demon Bull rushed towards Long Yu, and the Frenzy Divine runes erupted violently, seemingly wanting to smash Long Yu into pieces. However, of course, Long Yu would not follow in the footsteps of the Taiwu Empire Elder. God Formation, 9 Abyss. Long Yu raised his hand, and 9 pitch-black cracks quietly appeared in midair, directly blocking the path of the frenzied Battle Demon Cow's charge. Originally, the Frenzy Demon Bull did not care much, but when it was hit by the first pitch-black crack that extended out, its whole body suddenly twitched, and its skin began to turn black. Not good. Hurry. Run. The Frenzy Demon Bull still wanted to warn its friend, the Flaming Mountain Cat, but as more and more pitch-black cracks hit its body, it couldn't even say a word. The Godly Formation 9 Abyss, a Grade 3 Godly Formation, this technique can be said to be invincible in Shenwu world. Not to mention a Grade 3 Godly Formation, even the simplest Grade 9 Godly Formation has never been seen before. Not only that, there were not many people in the entire Shenwu world who had reached 9th grade compatibility with divine runes, let alone a method to cultivate god formations. Relying on the god formation 9 Abyss, Long Yu was able to break Yi Ziwei's absolute beginning divine rune in one move. It was clear how terrifying this god formation technique was. Of course, Yi Ziwei's absolute beginning Thunder Seal was not in its complete state, or had not awakened yet. Otherwise, Long Yu would not be Yi Ziwei's opponent. What a pity you're the ones who think too much. As soon as Long Yu attacked, he directly killed the Emperor late-stage Frenzy Demon Bull. This caused the Flaming Mountain Cat Demon Cultivator, who was stunned by the 8 trigrams Heaven Suppression technique, to explode in anger. However, in the next moment, the Flaming Mountain Cat Demon Cultivator was also enveloped by the power of the life and death contract, and instantly turned to ashes. Originally, these 2 demon cultivators were planning to kill Long Yu after killing the 2 people from the Taiwu Empire, but they didn't expect that Long Yu would attack them without hesitation, and even easily killed one of them, causing them to suffer a crushing defeat today. And the consequence of this crushing defeat was, of course, losing their lives. In the battles of Netherworld Black Palace, there would usually be a way out. After all, everyone was a relatively strong existence in the Shenwu world, and they often met each other. It was only a competition for treasures. There was no need to kill each other. However, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu didn't want any information about them to be leaked. Since the other party had the intention to kill them, there was no need to let them go. In any case, Long Yu couldn't possibly give up the Netherworld crystal to the other party. If that was the case, there would be a conflict between them sooner or later, so he naturally had to strike first. The corpses of the 4 demon cultivators were completely annihilated by the power of the Netherworld divine script. Then, Xiangwu's originally hidden figure appeared, and she put the rhombus-shaped Netherworld crystal that was originally floating in the air into her bag. It's done. let's hurry up and go. Long Yu called out to Shi Yingwu, and the two of them flashed past, directly entering the spatial vortex in the middle of the main palace, and then disappeared. In the next moment, the two of them arrived at the second nether palace. In the second nether palace, there were a total of 2 main palaces, and each main palace contained a netherworld crystal. Long Yu and Shi Yongwu's goal was to obtain both netherworld crystals in the second nether palace, so they had to find them as soon as possible. The moment Long Yu and Shi Yingwu stepped into the second nether palace, the expressions of many people who were still exploring the first nether palace changed at the same time, especially Lei Emperor's 7th direct disciple, Zhong Jian, and 8th direct disciple, Lu Feihong. The two of them had been deducing Long Yu's location, and then hurried towards Long Yu's location. But just now, they found that the difficulty of deducing Long Yu's location had increased by at least 10 times. They're heading to the second nether palace? Zhong Jian and Lu Feihong looked at each other. They felt that the kid's luck couldn't be that good, right? He directly went to the second nether palace? After all, the paths of the 10,000 secondary palaces in the first nether palace were complicated, and there was no pattern to them at all. It would definitely take a lot of time to find the main palace that led to the second nether palace. But now, Long Yu had directly stepped into the second nether palace. How could they not be shocked? No, maybe he just returned to the first nether palace. Zhong Jian's expression sank as he guessed. You can't think of it that way. Long Yu definitely has a lot of secrets on him, and that's definitely the key to his smooth sailing. Lu Feihong analyzed calmly. If he returned to the first nether palace, then I can't be bothered with him. But if he really went to the second nether palace, then he definitely has some secrets on him. I don't believe that his luck is that good to find the first nether palace's main palace so quickly. Should we still chase after him? Zhong Jian asked with some hesitation. He had just killed a lot of black fog life forms in the first nether palace, and his inner world had expanded a lot, so he wanted to kill as many black fog life forms as possible. Although he really wanted to deal with Long Yu, he definitely had to wait until his martial Dao realm improved. Now that there was such an opportunity, were they going to give up this opportunity in the process of chasing Long Yu? Of course we have to chase after him. Not only do we have to chase after him, we have to chase after him as fast as possible. Lu Feihong looked at Zhong Jian and was a little unhappy with this person's performance. This guy was really a blockhead. He couldn't see the opportunity in front of him at all. However, Zhong Jian couldn't see it, and Lu Feihong didn't tell him. In Lu Feihong's eyes, Long Yu was originally just an enemy of his junior brother. But now that Long Yu was able to go to the second nether palace so quickly, it was obvious that he had a big secret on him. If he obtained this secret, it was very likely that he would be like Long Yu, possessing stronger martial Dao talent and cultivation resources. This was an excellent opportunity. Of course, Lu Feihong didn't want to share this opportunity with Zhong Jian, so he didn't say much. He just brought Zhong Jian as fast as possible and flew in the direction of Long Yu, which he had deduced half an hour ago. As long as they followed Long Yu's path, they could find Long Yu's path and find the way to the second nether palace faster. The heavens are really helping me, Lu Feihong thought in his heart. His eyes flashed with a shrewd look, and he brought Zhong Jian to chase. Chapter 9:29. At this moment, the number of people who could reach the main hall of the first palace was much more than before. In a short period of time, dozens of people had passed through the spatial whirlpool and arrived at the second palace. Although Long Yu and Shi Yingwu could clearly sense the location of the main hall, their cultivation was still not as high as the others, so their flying speed was naturally slower. Some late Emperor Realm experts were twice as fast as Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. If they were lucky, it was normal for them to find a main hall of the first palace first. However, it was not so easy for others to catch up to Long Yu in the second palace. This was because there were a total of 200,000 secondary palaces in the second palace, which was 10 times more than the first palace. If there were only 10,000 secondary palaces, it was possible to find the main hall before Long Yu or second only to Long Yu. However, there were a total of 200,000 secondary palaces. It was extremely difficult to rely on luck to find the main hall. Ordinary people would need to spend at least 4 to 5 days to find the main hall of the second palace and enter the third palace. However, for Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, this time was greatly reduced. The two stepped into the second palace, and along the way, they encountered Emperor Realm Black Mist life forms. However, the two did not deal with these life forms, because their ultimate goal was to reach the final profound palace. Therefore, the two had to obtain all 45 nine nether crystals before everyone else. They could not miss a single one. There are more than 3,000 secondary palaces. Let's move forward as fast as we can. Under such circumstances, Long Yu took out a fan. This fan was a Great Desolation high-rank combat weapon that was plundered from the Supreme Martial Empire Elder after his death. It was a speed-type combat weapon. With a wave of the giant fan, a gust of wind doubled the two's speed at least, and this state could be maintained for a long time. It was most likely because of this fan that the two Supreme Martial Empire Elders were able to find the main hall of the first palace so quickly. But now, Long Yu and Shu Chan could conceal their presence with balance control, so the black fog life forms along the way couldn't detect their presence at all, which made their speed even faster than before. A stream of light rapidly passed through the dark secondary halls of the second palace, shuttling through the secondary halls one after another. About an hour later, the two finally arrived at the first main hall of the second palace. Without a doubt, no one could be faster than the two of them. 9 nether condensed the crystal and floated in the center of the main hall. Long Yu went forward and kept it in his arms. Then, he immediately used a secret technique to detect the direction of the other main hall. Let's go. Long Yu called out to Shi Yingwu, then waved his fan to speed up the two of them, and once again flew towards another main palace. At that moment, what Long Yu didn't know was that 2 people had already stepped into the second palace. Moreover, they were constantly deducing the movements of the two of them. These 2 people were Lei Emperor's 7th direct disciple, Zhong Jian, and 8th direct disciple, Lu Feihong. Both of them were early-stage Soul Emperors. Although they had just stepped into the realm of Soul Emperors, their powers of divination were at the pinnacle of perfection. It took them less than half an hour to calculate Long Yu's location. As the two continued to run simulations, they executed the Thunder movement technique that the Thunder Emperor had imparted to them. It was an ancient superior-grade movement technique, and they closed in on the two at a speed that was even faster than Long Yu and Sunset Dance. When using the Lightning movement technique, the two of them were even faster than the current Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. At this rate, both of them would arrive at the other main hall of the second palace at almost the same time. The first main hall, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu quickly took it, giving them no time to calculate. But for the second main hall, because of Zhong Jian and Lu Feihong's calculations, Long Yu wouldn't be able to obtain it so easily. Second secluded palace, second main hall. 2 hours later, this main hall welcomed its first guests in 50 years. It was Long Yu and Shi Yingwu who flew straight here. It's done. Long Yu saw that the 9 nether crystal was still in the main hall and breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that he wasn't the fastest. If that was the case, then his plan to enter the final profound palace would be ruined. However, just as he was about to step forward and take away the 9 nether crystal, he suddenly felt a sense of alarm in his heart. His figure quickly flashed to the side. In the next moment, a thunderous sword light attacked from behind, instantly cutting through his body. Who? Long Yu frowned and turned around, just in time to see 2 handsome young men flying towards him. One of them was holding a thunderous longsword in his hand. It seemed that the thunderous sword light just now was cast by this person. Long Yu had a slight impression of these 2 people. They were Lei Emperor's 7th and 8th direct disciples. Long Yu immediately became vigilant. These 2 fellows had appeared here and directly attacked him. They definitely had malicious intentions, so the following battle was likely inevitable. However, there were still some doubts in Long Yu's heart. He didn't doubt why the two of them were able to catch up to him so quickly and find his location. However, he was very puzzled. Why didn't he sense their presence when they were so close to him? It had to be known that Long Yu had now mastered the 5th level balance control. Could it be that these two people had some strange way of hiding their aura? No matter what, Long Yu remembered this in his heart. Then, without waiting for the other party to say anything, he directly turned around and spat out a 9 nether dragon breath. At the same time, hundreds of ancient shadows were condensed and spread out in all directions. One of the primordial shadows flew straight towards the crystal condensed by the 9 nether at the center of the main hall, wanting to collect it. Long Yu's action gave the two of them a fright. Lu Feihong wanted to say some polite words and try to get some secrets from Long Yu, but he didn't expect that Long Yu would directly attack without saying a word. Thunderbolt movement technique. Their figures instantly turned into a flash of lightning and flashed to the side, directly evading Long Yu's 9 nether dragon breath. Just as the two of them were about to split up, one to deal with Long Yu, the other with Sunset Dance. However, the pitch-black dragon breath of the 9 underworlds suddenly changed direction and split into 2. It continued to spread towards the two of them, giving off a strange and eerie aura. Long Yu's 9 nether dragon breath was now an imperial path technique, and it had the function of automatically tracking the target. How could it be so easily evaded with a movement technique? In the next moment, both of them used a defensive technique to block the 9 nether dragon breath. However, at this time, Long Yu had already collected the 9 nether crystal. Watching Long Yu's action, Shi Yingwu was not stunned at all. Instead, her whole body condensed divine characters of death, and she used the Dance of Death martial technique towards the 7th pro-disciple of Lei Emperor, Zhong Jiyan. This martial technique was an extremely confusing martial technique, and it was the strongest martial technique taught to her by the Envoy of Death, a top-grade Archean level martial technique. Even though Zhong Jiyan's martial realm was 3 levels higher than Shi Yongwu's, he was confused by the Dance of Death at this moment. In his eyes, countless figures of Shi Yingwu appeared, surrounding him and constantly approaching. No matter which Shi Yingwu figure he wanted to attack, Shi Yongwu's figure would disappear, and then another figure of Shi Yingwu would appear in another place. Thunderbolt Vane's Seal die. Seeing that Long Yu was about to attack, the 8th pro-disciple, Lu Feihong, didn't bother with nonsense. He raised his hand and blasted a bolt of lightning towards Long Yu's body. Long Yu subconsciously used divine characters of void to dodge, but then he suddenly realized that he couldn't use divine characters of space in this secluded palace. In this moment of confusion, the bolt of lightning struck Long Yu's body, and with a flicker of electricity, it completely sealed all of Long Yu's meridians. This was a control-type ability, and one that Lu Feihong had mastered. After all, he was a pro-disciple of Lei Emperor. Even though he was only an early-stage Great Emperor, he was still much more difficult to deal with than the other late-stage Great Emperors. For the time being, Long Yu didn't think about how the other party had seen through his true body. No matter what, he had to stop the other party from using any other killer moves, or else Long Yu would definitely be in danger. In the next moment, hundreds of Long Yu's desolate ancient shadows moved in unison, each condensing one fallen dark star after another, and surrounded Lu Feihong. Lu Feihong still wanted to directly control Long Yu and force Long Yu to reveal his secret. Therefore, he hesitated for a moment as to what method he should use to deal with Long Yu. However, it was precisely this hesitation that allowed Long Yu's desolate ancient phantoms to find an opportunity. Countless fallen dark stars rumbled over and trapped Lu Feihong within them before exploding with a bang. A lightning barrier appeared around Lu Feihong's body, blocking the damage caused by the bombardment of the fallen dark stars. However, after a period of delay, Long Yu was finally able to extricate himself from the control state of the Lightning Vein Seal. Under the control of Thunderbolt Vein Seal, Long Yu couldn't use any methods. It could be said that he was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. But now that Long Yu had broken free, it wouldn't be so easy for the other party to use this move. Balance control. Hide. Divine concealment. Long Yu used both methods at the same time. Originally, he only wanted to hide from the black fog life form in this secluded palace, so he didn't use his full strength to hide. Perhaps this was how he was discovered, but now, Long Yu used all his strength to hide himself. Whether it was Lu Feihong or Zhong Jian who had just broken free from the Dance of Death, both suddenly lost track of Long Yu, as if Long Yu had completely disappeared. Death assertion. Just as Zhong Jian broke free from Death Dance's bewildering control, Sunset Dance's next attack arrived. Death affirmation appeared, and the aura of Death Divine runes rumbled out, directly entering Zhong Jian's mind. You're courting death. Zhong Jian suddenly glared angrily, and his body erupted with lightning. Endless lightning flowed through his body and unexpectedly expelled all the power of the divine runes of death from his body. The difference in martial Dao realm between the two sides was too great. If she wanted to fight against Zhong Jian, Shi Yingwu was not qualified. Although we can't find Long Yu, this little girl is still here. Let's directly capture her and see if that boy comes out. Chapter 9:30. Long Yu had already guessed Lu Feihong's plan to ambush Shi Yingwu. Long Yu was the enemy's main target. What would they do if Long Yu disappeared? Without a doubt, they would first subdue Shi Yingwu. Since Long Yu had already guessed their plan, he would not allow them to succeed. Before Lu Feihong decided to conceal himself completely, he had already predicted this scene. When Lu Feihong flashed behind Sunset Dance, 8 pillars of light of different colors suddenly appeared in the void and shot toward Lu Feihong. In the next moment, he was suppressed on the spot. 8 trigram suppression. Long Yu had already set up the 8 trigram suppression around Shi Yingwu. This was a first-rank divine chain. Even the early-stage Emperor Lei Emperor's direct disciple, Lu Feihong, was completely immobilized. Though he was conscious and could see his surroundings, he was unable to react. The 8 pillars of light were like the strongest chains in the world, trapping him firmly in midair. It's over. Long Yu's voice came from the side. 9 black cracks suddenly appeared from the side and extended towards Lu Feihong. It was the 3rd-rank divine formation, 9 Abyss. 9 Abyss attacked. 9 black cracks tore through space and extended towards Lu Feihong, annihilating him within. Not a single trace was left behind. Long Yu's most important battle techniques were his control techniques and the formation of 9 Abyss. The destructive power of the formation of 9 Abyss was undeniable. It could kill even a late-stage emperor in one blow, let alone an early-stage emperor. There were many control techniques. Origin energy, 9 Abyss suppression, 9 trigram suppression, 9 Abyss hand, soul seal siphon, and so on. Then kill with the formation of 9 Abyss in one blow. This was the entire process of Long Yu's battle. Of course, he would only use it when he was certain that he could kill his opponent. Otherwise, it was very likely that others would leak this information, and it would not be so easy to kill others by surprise, especially now that he could not use the Spatial Break Divine Rune. The Duankong Sacred Spring could be used, but if he couldn't use the Space Breaker Divine Rune, the Duankong Sacred Spring wouldn't be able to unleash much of its power. There was no need to reveal it now. As Lu Feihong's body was completely annihilated by the formation of 9 Abyss, the shocked Zhong Jian was also enveloped by the 9 Abyss fog and corroded away, leaving no trace behind. After the 2 of them died, there were quite a lot of cultivation resources left behind. Other than medicinal pills, there were also combat weapons. However, there was no need for Zhang Xian to use them. After all, they belonged to the Thunder Emperor's direct disciple. Although no one would investigate the identity of the 2 of them, if Zhang Xian were to openly use the combat weapons of others, it would be too embarrassing for the Thunder Emperor. Long Yu still had a good impression of the Thunder Emperor and did not wish to become enemies with him. Since someone wanted to kill him, he naturally had to retaliate. However, it would be fine after he retaliated and killed the other party. The things that the other party had left behind were not worth much to Long Yu, so he might as well just leave them in this main palace. If someone else came to the main palace and saw the cultivation resources, they might start fighting, and those people would slowly enter the third nether palace. Let's go. The rest of the journey should be quite safe, Long Yu said to Shi Yingwu. The two of them moved together, entering the spatial whirlpool in the main palace, and finally entering the third nether palace. In the third nether palace, all that appeared were Emperor Realm black fog life forms. Most of the other cultivators of Shenwu World could only reach this step, but that was something that would only happen a few days later. The only people who could enter the third nether palace right now were Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. However, this was only limited to Shenwu World. What Long Yu and Shi Yingwu didn't know was that when the 9 nether palace opened, not only did the 5 emperors of Shenwu World lead a group of people here, there were also other mysterious figures that appeared in the 9 nether palace, and their speed of advancement was just as fast. Zhong Jiyin and Lu Feihong's appearance was only a small interlude that didn't affect Long Yu too much. When Long Yu entered the third nether palace, he found out that there were a total of 500,000 sub-palaces in the third nether palace, as well as 3 main palaces. The terrain of the third nether palace was a few times more complicated than the second nether palace. However, this wasn't much of a problem for Long Yu and Shi Yingwu. The third nether palace is basically our last chance to improve. The black fog life forms here are all emperors. Brother Long can just kill them. Shi Yingwu thought for a bit and said, if we get to the 4th nether palace, the black fog life forms are mostly 1-star emperor realm. We won't be able to deal with them. How about we kill some of the black fog life forms along the way? After all, the others aren't as fast as us. That's not a good idea. Long Yu, however, shook his head. There are opportunities to improve at all times, but if someone else were to be a step ahead of us and take away the 9 underworlds crystal in one of the main halls, then our trip would have been in vain. Remember, we can't lose the big picture for the sake of the small. That's true. Shi Yingwu thought for a bit and realized that Long Yu's words were very reasonable. It was better to be safe than sorry. If someone really took away the 9 Serenity's crystal, wouldn't it be too miserable? There is a main palace outside of the 11,000 sub-palaces. Let's go there as fast as we can and take away the 9 Serenity's crystal. Long Yu said, then took Shi Yingwu and fanned the giant fan battle weapon, increasing their flying speed by more than double. At this time, the only movement skill that Long Yu could use was the dance of the dragon sparrow. When spatial divine script couldn't be used, normal movement skills would instead be very effective. It was thanks to the dance of the dragon sparrow that Long Yu and Shi Yingwu were able to fly so fast. Before most people even reached the 2nd nether palace, they had already arrived at the 3rd nether palace. The entire trip to the 3rd nether palace was basically uneventful. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu quickly went through all 3 main palaces and obtained 3 9 Serenity's crystal. Right after that, the two of them went straight to the 4th nether palace. The 4th nether palace, to the majority of Shenwu World's martial cultivators, was definitely a forbidden area, because the black fog life forms that appeared here were at least as strong as a 1-star emperor. Even a terrifying combatant like the Tianxiang Emperor would die if he came to the 4th nether palace. It was already very difficult to deal with a single black fog life form, not to mention that if they couldn't defeat it quickly, more black fog life forms would surround them, and they wouldn't be able to escape no matter what. For Long Yu and Shi Yingwu, this wasn't a big problem, because the two of them had both comprehended balance control, especially since Long Yu had already cultivated it to the 5th level. Even a 1-star Emperor-level black fog life form wouldn't be able to discover Long Yu's hidden figure. With Long Yu protecting Shi Yingwu, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to sneak through the 4th nether palace, even the 5th nether palace, the 6th nether palace, and so on. Right now, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu both wanted to obtain the 9 Serenity's crystal as quickly as possible, then go to the deepest part of the palace to open the final profound palace. However, after they had advanced for a period of time in the 4th nether palace, they discovered that something was wrong, because the number of black fog life forms in the 4th nether palace was completely different. Some of the palaces were filled with black fog life forms, and there were at least hundreds and thousands of them, but some of the palaces didn't even have a single life form, as if someone had already come here and cleaned them up. This discovery made the two of them a little confused. Logically speaking, it was impossible for anyone else to come to the fourth Nether Palace at this time. But now, the number of one-star Emperor-level black fog life forms in the entire palace had obviously decreased by a lot. Connecting this to some of the information that Long Yu had previously understood, he knew that someone had already come to the fourth Nether Palace, but he didn't know who it was. We have a speed up. Fortunately, we didn't stay too long in the third Nether Palace. Shi Yingwu said with admiration. With regard to Long Yu's previous judgment, she was now completely convinced. After all, who would have guessed that someone would come to the fourth Nether Palace before them? In the fourth Nether Palace, there were a total of 4 main palaces, and each of the main palaces was separated in 4 different directions, so it would take a long time to run through the 4 main palaces. If it wasn't for the fact that Long Yu and Shi Yingwu had learned the secret technique to sense the 9 Serenities crystal, it would have been impossible for them to collect 45 9 Serenities crystal in a short period of a month. 2 hours later, Long Yu and Shi Yingwu finally arrived at the first main palace of the fourth Nether Palace. The moment they arrived at the main palace, their hearts sank. In the center of the main palace, the 9 Serenities crystal that should have been floating had actually disappeared. Someone had come here before them. Long Yu and Shi Yingwu looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. Originally, they were full of confidence for this trip, but now, it seemed that there was definitely an existence that Long Yu couldn't see through among the people that had entered the 9 Serenities Palace. What should we do? Someone actually got here before us. Shi Yingwu saw that the plan was about to fail and was instantly a little flustered. Don't worry, let's find some clues first, then head to the next main palace. Long Yu also had a bad premonition, but there was no other way. Right now, he had to make a decision, and that was whether to continue or to give up. If he couldn't collect enough 9 Serenities crystal, then even if he headed to the 9th Nether Palace, he wouldn't be able to open the entrance to the final Profound Palace. It was equivalent to all his previous efforts being in vain. But until the very last moment, Long Yu absolutely wouldn't give up. Since he knew that someone had taken away the 9 Serenities crystal, then he only needed to find that person and snatch it back from that person's hands. Although the person who could take away the 9 Serenities crystal so quickly in the 4th Nether Palace would definitely not be any weaker than the 1-star Emperor. But what if it was some other martial cultivator who was weaker, but possessed a very fast speed? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.